Welcome to another week of TCP. It's episode 211. And you're probably wondering why I'm wearing sunglasses indoors right now. It's because I've been playing Microsoft Flight Simulator. So I'm just trying to play the... No, I actually have not been doing any of that. What I did actually do is I got new eyes. Brand new eyes. Have you guys ever seen the movie Thor? Was it Thor or was it one of the Avengers movies? And Chris Hemsworth thought he got a new eye. Got given it by Rocket Raccoon. He's just slotted it right in. That's what I did. I have two of those brand new eyes. And I don't want to scare people too much with my new look. And so I thought that the best thing to do would be to ease people in to the look by still wearing some form of glasses. But I'm not going to wear my old glasses because those have like focus lens. I'm not going to ruin my eyes after I just fix them. So yeah, we start the podcast with me on sunglasses. I'll take them off now because I want to be able to see things. It's actually nighttime where I am, so it's even more weird for me to be doing this. So things, it's like let's make things darker than it already is. But that was my week. I spent the last week getting surgery. That was fun. How you guys doing?
Nice. Out of interest, what would have Monkey Killed Sharingan cost you?
You're gonna have to say that again. I didn't understand what you just said. What?
Did you watch Naruto?
Naruto? No, I'm watching Attack on Titan.
Right. Okay.
Yiska,
no, then
that's a man of culture.
We're currently watching. Who the hell's watching Naruto right now? What are you talking about?
No, not right now. Did you ever?
I never really got into it. I'm not gonna lie to you. That's one of those. It's one of those things I never truly got into. And by the time I felt like getting into it, it was too overwhelming, and too intimidating. It's like, would you like to watch 200 seasons of Naruto? I'm like, sounds like a lot.
Not sure that I do.
Yeah,
it's a lot. Most of it's not good. Let's face it.
It really isn't. But some of it is.
Some of it is. Some of it is very good.
I couldn't tell you. I've also never played a Final Fantasy game. What else haven't I done?
Same. Have you played Resident Evil?
Oh, yeah. Only the remakes, though.
Have you played Zelda games?
No. That's another one. Never played a Zelda game.
Yeah, same.
Includes Breath of the Wild. Never touched Breath of the Wild.
Yeah.
I don't have a Switch. Sue me. I don't have a Switch. What do you want me to do? No console, no Switch.
Yeah.
Here's one.
Have you ever
played... not on PC?
Have you ever played a COD game?
I've played nearly all the COD games.
Oh, right. Okay.
The only ones I haven't played, I'm an FPS gamer. How could I not have played COD games? That's right up my alley. The first three CODs before COD 4, I did not play. And I think Ghost, I did not play. And World War 2, I did not play. Ghost, because I just unanimously heard it was rubbish. And World War 2, because I have no interest in period-based shooters. And speaking of which, I don't know why I've done this to myself. I own Vanguard. It's on my Battle.net account. I can boot it up anytime I want, including right now. But I've still not done that. And the game's been out since November.
Yeah.
I have Vanguard. I own it. I've not played it yet.
Wow.
Don't know why. I'll get to it. I will get to it.
But yeah, I also haven't played, like, I missed out on a bunch of, like, big franchises. I've never played a Zelda game. I've never played a...
Really?
A Resident Evil game. I have never played a Far Cry. I've never played a what are these Bethesda? Is it a Bethesda game?
Fallout?
I've never played a Fallout.
I've actually never played a Fallout game either.
Played New Vegas.
Crazy, right?
New Vegas was fun.
I own 3 and New Vegas. It's on my Steam account right now. By the time I got them, it was like, it was like 5-10 years after the fact that the release. I'm like, how keen am I on to play a super old game? I don't know. Maybe tell me, do they stand the test of time? Maybe they do. Maybe I should actually.
Leave a comment down below. Let AVRL know.
Do Fallout 3 and New Vegas stand the test of time? If you were to boot it up again now and you remove the rose tinted, here we go. You've removed. Imagine these are rose tinted. You remove the rose tinted glasses. Does the game actually hold up like way down the line? My list of games right now is actually pretty long because I've still got, as I said, Vanguard, God of War that I said I was going to play and I still haven't yet. I was going to start streaming it, but then I got eye surgery, so it was like, you know what, I probably shouldn't encourage myself to be in front of a computer screen for too long. I might just take it easy for a week or so. Just add to my list of excuses as to why I haven't returned to streaming yet. I'll get there. Yeah, Resident Evil 2 and 3 remake, especially 2. I do highly recommend it. Yiska.
Okay.
If you're just gonna play one Resident Evil game, right now I would probably the one I would suggest is Resident Evil 2 remake. Unless you're like very keen on the new Resident Evils, in which case you can play Village, which is reasonable, which is pretty good. I played Village, I enjoyed it. But I think if you like the quintessential Resident Evil experience as it was in the 90s is best encapsulated in the number 2 remake, which is I think my favorite game of the entire series, having only played maybe 3 out of the however many games in the entire series.
Yeah.
So that opinion probably doesn't hold a lot of water, but I know a lot of people agree with that. They also think remake 2 is the best.
Yeah. Have you guys ever played a FIFA?
Not willingly.
Yeah. No, that's
shot,
you can't be a German child and not have played FIFA at some friend's house at some point. But yeah,
imagine it's like Madden here.
Yeah.
2K.
I've never played Madden.
Yeah.
I watched a friend play Madden once, and it was so complicated with all the different tactics and like formations. I'm like, dude, I feel like I need to go through an undergraduate degree to even get prepared to play this game. You know?
Yeah.
Can get kind of wild.
Okay. It's the time to talk about the thing we actually want to talk about. The latest Attack on Titan episode.
True.
Which I know.
I will say,
I did,
and I know some people in the comments, spoiler warning from here moving forward. We may discuss spoilers. Approach at your own risk.
Yep.
For how long? Give it for roughly for how long so they can skip ahead.
I'll keep my hand up for as long as we're talking about Attack on Titan. So if you
but what if they're listening? What if they're like on Spotify only? They can't see your raised hand.
Yo,
I'll set a timer. Here we go. I'll set a timer. You know what? You're right.
Yo, Joe is about to turn into one of these yogis. You know these guys that keep their hand up their entire life, and it's just
how spoilers? I've actually done a great job of avoiding spoilers.
Yeah, you have.
How spoiler territory are you about to get into?
There's one scene in particular because I just ended up watching the most recent episode.
Yeah.
That like kind of bugged me. Because I felt like it was too pulled from the manga, if that makes sense.
Okay, let me do it like this. We obviously have timestamps on this. I mean, that's mainly for the YouTube viewers. So,
do you want to set a 10-minute timer?
I mean, I can set it. If we're on this for 10 minutes, I think we got issues.
Set a 10-minute timer anyway. Yeah, and then if you are serious about avoiding spoilers, skip ahead 10 minutes. You tell us when. Joe, you do it. You say when, and and then that's the point you skip 10 minutes forward from.
All right, ready? 10 minutes from here.
All right, go. Spoilers now. Spoil things. If you're still here, you're about to be spoiled.
So
you've been warned.
I was like not happy with how they did Eren at the end of this episode.
Why?
See, we know it's supposed to happen, but like it felt like it was just too. It was just shot for shot from the manga, and I think you could probably improve that with the visual medium that is like animation. Like I would have loved it if like in the scene Eren's trying to run, he escapes the attack titan, he's running to Zeke and they have to touch to go to the paths or whatever, right? And like we know Gabby's supposed to fucking dome this kid, right? Just fucking rip his head off. Boom, headshot, mom get the camera, the vibes, right?
Yes.
Why do we have to like have this big like lead up into it? Why can't it just happen and then everybody reacts like, oh my god, that shit just happened? Like I feel like the reveal, like I get it, the manga's been out, everybody probably already knows, but like just for those who don't, I feel like that experience is just so like not even blue balled. It's just like it's just a ruined orgasm.
Really?
Why?
I think so. I feel like it's just so like because it's such an obvious lead up. It's just like, oh my god, the world time stops. It's like that kind of cliche of like there's such an important moment in everything stops for a second and it's just his head flying in the air and it's just
you
like
didn't like the instant. Yeah, I can see that. I would have maybe like it looks like he gets it, and it's like and you're thinking like, okay, he's about to touch it, and now we're going ham, and the rumbling happens and everything. But they actually put her in the middle of the screen, and you know what's about to happen with that big ass gun. Instead of his head being chopped off first and then cutting to the
exactly
to her.
I want to see him running seamlessly, boom, head off. Like, oh my god, what the fuck just happened? That's so wild.
Yeah, I agree.
Right? Why does there have to be such a big lead up?
I agree.
So what? I'm trying to figure this out. So you're talking about how they slowed everything down, and you looked at everyone's reactions, and then they did the shot.
Yes.
And you would have preferred it if he just ran, they did the shot, and then they slowed everything down, did all that.
Yeah, almost not even like recapping it, but just like pausing time in the moment that like you're trying to like process it.
I think from a cinema standpoint, I think they handled it quite well. To me, I had the opposite reaction to you. I drained my nuts to that scene. No, no, that's not true either. One of my testicles was drained. The other one was I kept some left because I'm a manga reader and I know what's coming. So I'm not gonna blow the full load just yet.
Yep.
I don't know. I felt like it was handled gracefully as someone that actually knew what was coming in. It's hard for me to say because I'm not someone that is an anime only watcher that would experience it for the first time and would be able to comment from that perspective. I can only comment from the perspective of already knowing what was going to happen. But I feel like it was handled well. I mean, I could see the way you're trying to describe it, and that could be interesting, but that would also be like a huge just boom, just drop the mic, slap in your face moment, whereas this one had a bit more lead up to it. I feel like the lead up was good because it had the necessary foreplay to get me to where I needed to be.
Now, I think Joe, knowing the manga, right?
Yeah.
I think there's an argument to be made that you don't want to make too big of a deal out of that scene, because as we talked about before, it somehow defies some of the logic that was pointed out. So you would probably feel like, okay, this is like a post-ex machina type of bullshit situation where, like, if you really blow this up and you didn't know the manga existed or whatever, you would be going like, okay, they drafted the story upon this and went like, oh god, we gotta get one for the next week, and then invented like an absolute bullshit reason why this happens the way it happens, right? And now you're feeling completely fucked. I can see an argument for that. It definitely decreases the enjoyment of the moment for me, but it also probably would decrease the amount of bullshit meter that a person that has never read the anime would have experienced.
So you're saying the build up makes like this eventual payoff. Also, we're approaching 5 minutes here. So you're saying the build up in that scene decreases the like the head scratching factor of like the immediate next like thing once they exit the path.
Here's the problem. Okay, we're about to we're going spoiler level 2 now. Okay. We had spoiler level 1 for the show watchers.
Oh god!
Now we gotta go to spoiler level 2, manga spoiler. So
spoiler level 2. Skip the next 5 minutes if you don't want to spoil level 2.
So if you have watched the last episode but haven't read the manga, that now is where your time will cut off. You have 5 minutes.
Oh god!
So
now I'm gonna count, and then in 5 seconds you have to get off this and come back in 5 minutes. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, yes, we go for it. Jesus Christ.
So imagine you make the center point of that situation that Aaron's head is chopped off and he's now fucking dead, right? And all that happens is like he gives a little bit of blood to Zeke, and therefore he has like the fucking Omega Titan access, Founding Titan fucking like Transformer hyper bullshit.
Yeah.
And then in the next episode, after you've digested that, they're like, Omega lul, actually not true. Actually, like, fucking thing grows back. We're now hyper, like, immortal, right? That would feel bullshit, I think, to someone that hasn't read the manga there at that point. Because I don't think they will have more time to establish the logic than the manga had, why that is now possible.
Sure.
Let's be honest. Like, by the established rules of the manga, the only thing that once Zeke and fucking Aaron start kissy, the only thing that keeps them from being immortal is the fucking 7-year timer. Everything else, they can now fuck the world and be immortal forever because for all we know, they could literally vaporize to the atom and they would grow back, right?
I just don't know why, or if even you're arguing that like this scene needed to be that long to make it less bullshit. Am I tracking?
Yeah, because like now the focus was sort of like on what's her name?
Ymir or Gabby?
Gabby. On Gabby,
okay.
Like big ass gun. Oh my god, she does it again. Fucking Omega Sniper Lul. Like shot head off, clean off. By the way, that twist is fucking weird. No gun would do that. Like
it's like an anti-tank gun, bro.
Yeah,
also, how does a kid operate that?
Why the fuck would the head spin off?
Because it looks good.
Yeah, it looks fucking sick.
So, but like now it isn't really about the decapitation as much as about the moment has a build up, and it's like the importance of the moment is 2 minutes. 2 minutes. The importance of the moment is less focused on that. Oh my fucking god. And more so like, oh my god, she's also part of the picture. She kind of saved her people that way.
Yes.
So eventually it's just like, well, girl, I'm sorry, but you're up against literal gods. You kind of fucked. Right?
Yeah.
He nearly did it. Because there's a
True.
world where he like,
True.
it was a world where like, I don't know, the head doesn't get caught and that's it, and it just ends like boom.
Was there ever really a world? I don't know. We've all seen the ending.
I'm saying hypothetically in
no,
like
I'm just teasing.
In like a real world sense, if we can even like rack our brains around that. I think you guys are reading into it a little much. I think it was more in my opinion, Marpa Studio, who obviously animated the whole thing, weren't thinking about it from a perspective of like, oh yeah, well, what makes the most sense in terms of a payoff, and more from the sense of like, what's a cool artistic way to show this in terms of a payoff? Sure. Like what's like the coolest way to interpret the manga in an artistic sense for a show? And from that perspective, I think they nailed it. I think like it gave me everything I wanted. It was a great lead again, because I also knew it was coming, so it was different for me. Whereas I think for everyone else, but then again, for everyone else as well, they didn't expect the twist. They were just expecting, okay, well, this is the big moment we've been waiting for. They're finally going to touch and do the thing, and it's a lot of build up to get to that point of where they're going to touch, and then the twist happens, and now it's about something different. Now it's like, wait, what just happened? And the build up's now about like, well, what's going to happen to them? Yeah. Is it going to still work? Is he dead? Like, what does this mean? And yeah, I mean, I remember that was a huge moment in the manga as well. I remember when the manga. This is why last episode I said,
and we're out of time.
Okay,
I hate to cut you off.
What I'm about to say now is non-spoilerish because I'll actually talk about something I said last week. Last week I said that this week's episode that we just got was going to have the most bullshit cliffhanger ending ever.
Yeah,
and the reason why I said that is because the big moment, which I'm not going to go into detail about anymore, that happened in this episode. That was the ending of the manga chapter.
Yeah.
When we got there, because I actually revisit that manga chapter, and I'm like, I want to sort of do a bit of comparison for myself anyway. And at the end, the big moment happens, and then boom, it just stops, and I'm like, oh great, I got to wait a whole month now. Like, it's not you wait 1 week, you wait a fucking month before that next chapter update.
I was certain that was going to be the end of the episode. I was like, this is it.
That's what I'm saying as well. Like, I thought that big moment that I'd been waiting, that everyone, all the manga readers would have been waiting for, to me, it was like, based on the pacing of some of these episodes so far, I expect that to be the ending, and I expect for a lot of people to be frustrated that is like how crazy of a cliffhanger it would have been, because it would have been the most wild cliffhanger there to this point has been possible in the show. I don't think it'd be possible to have a bigger cliffhanger than that based on what we've seen so far. And that, to me, it would have been like, well, now you get to feel how all the manga readers felt when they got that cliffhanger ending in the actual chapter itself, which is insane. I remember reading that chapter, my mind was blown, and I was thinking like, well, what does this mean now? Because like nothing makes sense anymore. Everything's just like, everything is just completely. My brain's melted. You know, my head's exploded. It's just like I've been decapitated. It's ridiculous. It's like I don't even understand what's happening anymore.
Are we past spoiler timer?
Yeah,
no
we're
more
well
spoilers,
past.
no more spoilers.
Okay.
We're
Right.
well past.
Right.
Yeah, I remember talking to Kenobi about it as that chapter was coming out, and we're both like, bro, I don't know how he's gonna wrap this up. Like, there's just no way. I don't know what this means, but there's no way he can get this done. This is too wild.
Yeah.
I will
Shit was
say
crazy.
though, I'm very pleased by the pacing now because I thought the pacing was going to be slow and they were going to milk it a bit more. And I'm like, bro, how are they going to get this entire season done in 12 episodes?
Yeah.
We're now 3 episodes in, and the pacing is fast enough that I can actually see them finishing the whole show in the next 9 episodes. I'm like, it's doable now.
Yeah.
Because they're doing more. They're putting more than one chapter in a single episode now somehow.
Yeah.
In a 20-minute episode, they are revealing more than what you got in a full chapter in the manga. So I'm like, okay, well, based on that, they can definitely finish. So that's actually quite exciting. I think I put out a tweet. The next 2 episodes for people that are not manga readers who have been faithfully following the anime and waiting and haven't been spoiled, bro, you're not ready. It's there. It is going to be.
I think
Thought the last episode, you're gonna enjoy it. If you thought the last episode was mind blowing, you're about to have your mind double blown because everything that's about to happen in the next 2 episodes, I feel like, is the big reveal, not for the season, but for the entire show, start to finish. Like everything in the show from episode 1 to now to the eventual end is, to me, would I say fully explained? I don't know if I would say fully explained, but it's finally contextualized in the sense that you will finish the next 2 episodes and be like, aha, now I understand why everything in the show is the way it is.
Yep. I think that's the beauty to me of Attack on Titan. Not to completely make this an Attack on Titan podcast, but it seems like people kind of like it, so we'll riff a little bit. I love Isayama's.
Joe, I like it, so that doesn't matter.
Fair enough.
I've stopped caring. I've stopped caring about what other people like. It's just why I like it or not.
I love Isayama's foreshadowing. From start to finish, he does not show you something that isn't explained or like contextualized in some facet. And most of the time, it's more than you could even imagine, right? Like, there are motifs and themes that are like loosely used that become so tangible in these next few episodes that it's like concussing. It's ridiculous. There are bits and pieces of the story that I'm like, I feel like that was kind of hokey. I wish I got more of this and that. I can nitpick here and there, but I think overall, like, Attack on Titan is easily, and I'm happy to have been wrong. I'm happy that, like, me dropping it in season 2 and being like, this is kind of dumb and hokey and we're not really going anywhere. It feels like we're just asking a lot of questions. We're not moving the plot along. And then to like now, it's definitely one of the better ones.
We move the plot along.
Yeah,
we definitely
did.
I mean, what even got you back in? Because if you felt, usually when I feel that way about something, I don't come back.
Oh, I agreed 100%. I think it was season 4 and everybody being like, you need to pick this back up. Like, you need to pick this back up. And it wasn't just like one circle of friends. It was like multiple people. Like, oh, are you going to...
Did you go back to where you left off?
I read some of the manga that was out. And then I think I kind of skimmed through like some of the seasons, got the gist of it, and then kind of picked back up with season 4. Pretty much.
Fast forwarded to season 4. You're like...
Which I kind of wish I
season 4.
didn't, but at the same time, I'm like, bro, I can't be asked to like sit here and watch like 50 episodes. It wasn't 50, but you know what I mean.
I still think it would have been worth it. It would have been rewarding, in my opinion.
For sure.
But you've already arrived here, so you know, whatever. I'll put it this way for where we're going to be in a second. After 2 weeks, I assume it'll be 2 weeks, because I think I don't even know. It could just be 1 episode, by the way. There's the possibility where, based on the pacing they have, all of the so-and-so reveals that I'm hinting at could actually all be done in 1 episode. But for some reason, I think it'll be 2, based on like, if I'm directing this, how would I want to split up the everything that's about to take place? And I think you should have 2 episodes for that, not just 1. But maybe they do it in 1. And my point is, at the end of it, it's so wild. You are going to want to go back to the first episode to look for clues.
Yep.
That's what I'm gonna say.
Yep.
I'll leave it there.
There are so many, like I said, there are so many just little ties and themes and motifs and just like off comments that you think are just off comments, but they're really not. It gets kind of crazy at how much he just like leaves and like gives you trails, and it all comes together. It's
Isayama legitimately had breadcrumbs from the first episode. It's fucking crazy.
Honest to God, from like minute one.
What?
Okay,
it's
interesting.
Nuts. Very impressive. Honest to God, like hats off to him.
Very actual impressive. Genius. Actual writing genius.
Yep.
I can't wait. The conclusion. It's everything. There's a lot coming up. There's still 9 more episodes. I'm surprised that we're only 3 episodes deep because I feel like we've covered a lot of ground. Mm-hmm. I feel like by the time we got here in the manga, I had read a few chapters already. You know, it was several chapters deep. That's why I'm like, okay, well, I guess pacing wise, things are okay then. But I would also argue that these have been 3 pretty heavy episodes in terms of the action. Oh, like sure. It's been nonstop. It's like boom, 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 boom. I've read some comments that have been like, bro, what were they? Basically, it was comments related to how intense the last 3 episodes have been. That there's no like emotional break at all. You're in a Formula 1 car, zipping through 3 laps nonstop, no breaks. You know, you're turning at hundreds of kilometers an hour, and you're just going at it. And the next 2 episodes, we're gonna settle down a little bit more, which is good for pacing because you don't want to just be at breakneck the entire time. But
yeah. It's
been pretty breakneck the last 3 episodes.
That's
first 3 of the season.
I'll take that over just like I'm here for like political intrigue and sabotage and stuff like that. But like you need to give me some sort of like payoff eventually, and I felt like this has definitely been exciting.
Based on your explanations, I'm not sure if I can hold out for the anime to finish. I might just have to read the manga.
No. You're already halfway through.
You might as well just
4 days. You're like 3.5 days away from getting to the anime.
I mean, it's not just the next episode, right? I can discipline myself for the next one. I'm not sure if I can discipline myself after
for the next like month.
Well, we'll talk after Sunday and see how you feel.
We'll reconvene next episode.
We'll reconvene after Sunday and see where you're at. I mean, you're at the point where you might as well just finish. Like if I was in your position, I probably would personally sit it out. The only reason I got into the manga was because I got to the end of season 3, part 1.
Yeah.
Where they're about to just go back to Shiganshina, and I was like, and then the season ends. I'm like, fuck, this is bullshit. Oh, I've been robbed. There's no way you're gonna end the season here. We're just about to go to the basement. You're gonna end the season here. Bullshit. And then I got the manga out because I was so frustrated. And I feel like that was a reasonable time to get it out because I've been blue-balled so hard by that season. I was like, no,
the same thing.
I cannot stand for this. Whereas we're in the middle of the season right now, so like the next episode.
And you're in the midst of ending the show. Like you might as. I would say it's probably best to just wait it out and experience it like with fresh eyes with the community,
right?
Yeah.
Without being spoiled, and then go back and look.
You have a unique ability to actually watch the show. I was going to say untainted by the manga, but that sounds like manga's bad or something. Where you are not influenced by the manga. You have a unique opportunity to watch the show in a way where you get to have, like Joe said, fresh eyes on it, where you have no expectations and no influence from the manga at all. Whereas I can't do that. I know what's going to happen, so I can only watch it from the perspective of I know what's going to happen, which is very. And I wish I could watch this fresh, if possible. But
it was. It was.
I blame the slow rollout of the seasons for.
It is possible
for forcing me away.
It is possible that I know the contents of the next episode, as I said. Like I know, right, some of it. I don't know. Like I'll have to see.
You'll be kind of enthralled with all of like once it's done, you're gonna go back and like look at the theory videos and like where all the breadcrumbs were and where the foreshadowing was and being like, oh, that's right, blah 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 happened here and they said this and that and dang, that's crazy that he actually had the foresight to like write that like chapters in advance.
There were things that happened in season 1 that are still unexplained as far as the anime goes.
Right.
Events in season 1 that were like, that's kind of fucking weird, and then it was just never addressed again. And in the world of like modern media, bad. It just looks like normal bad writing because sometimes in shows you watch or like movies you watch, there's like subplots that never get addressed again. Not because like they're trying to be really smart like Isayama, but actually it's just bad writing and they don't go back there because they're stupid or like they wrote themselves into a corner. They don't want to address that, or I don't know, or they just ran out of time and they just can't go back to it. So, but no, this is a show where like everything is deliberate. So if there are unanswered questions from earlier seasons, those questions are about to be answered.
What was Ymir like the actual character ever addressed again, or is that also a loop?
Which character is that?
Like the woman that
from season 1.
Yeah, she just runs off.
No, her storyline's concluded.
Yeah, okay. I just
season 4, part 1. You saw the conclusion of her storyline,
right? Okay.
If you know the character Galliard in the current season, you know how you know the pathway of how things had to happen for Galliard to have.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, that makes sense.
But
yeah, okay.
But that was not an unresolved plotline. That's a fully resolved plotline. There are just a couple of specs from, like I said, like after people finish season 4, rewatching season 1 suddenly makes a lot of sense because you're like, wait a minute. Let me see where those breadcrumbs were. Holy shit, they were in my face the whole time and I didn't see them at all.
Yeah. Okay.
Easily like a 2-watch series, and you get some fun out of it for sure.
Right.
All right.
But yeah.
Well, we've had our fun. That's our 30-minute Attack on Titans podcast. And now we're going to start the Overwatch podcast. Episode 211, brought to you by Battlecrab, Refine Bean, Bronzebot Buha, Chare, Prophet Picasso, Chris R34444, Kasha67, Lolshin, Porkshop, Sammy, Rexane, Sogurtha Volamels, Smooth Nuts, and Your Misery. And legitimately, guys, if the fact that you can have a 30-minute Attack on Titan discussion, which is longer than the episode, by the way, for what it's worth,
sure.
Means you could actually have like a genuine bite-sized podcast just for an anime episode. It's wild.
I hope there's like another one after this. I hope there's like something else that like captures like the collective's attention and like just becomes like that show that like everybody's waiting for.
Dude,
I thought you meant like another season, like Attack on Titan.
Oh God, please no! I'm so over just like running series into the fucking dirt, and I'm hoping Arcane isn't that. Please God, Riot.
You're just like, you see J.J. Abrams pick it up, and what's his face, who ruined Last Jedi.
I'm so tired of it. Just let the story be done. I don't need 15. I don't need the kids. I don't need the beach episodes. Just let it die. It's okay.
Fun fact: they actually have a spin-off of them going to school. Anyway, I said we were going to talk about Overwatch, and for some reason we haven't done that yet. So I've actually just I've lied to everyone listening. Couple things to take note of. We've got some player movements that actually happened. One significant one, in my opinion, and a few other ones that had already been rumored / leaked, or are just not as profound as the one I'm about to get to. There's the Merit to Outlaws one, is like the big boy move that people didn't see coming at all. I didn't see coming, and is quite a big one to talk about. So we might as well start with that one. The other ones are obviously Molly to Charge, and then Kuki to NYXL as coach, and Lengsa rumored to go to Valiant, which are not as big as the Merit news. So why don't we just kick it off? Merit to Outlaws. What are our thoughts from either the perspective of the Outlaws picking this guy up, or Merit as a player joining the Outlaws?
So I think my opinion is a little weird and slightly biased because I remember Merit. Did he play in China? I think he played just a couple hot seconds.
Played on LGE Huya. He actually won a season. He won the season that he went to Gauntlet.
Okay, so I do remember liking him a lot. Was that 2019? Is that
2019 season 2?
Okay, so I do like him. I did like him then. I thought he was like had a lot of potential. Was somebody I wanted to keep my eye on. And since then, I have not heard the same level of like fanfare that I was expecting. I thought his hit scan was very, very strong. I thought he had a very good Hanzo. I thought his Widow was very strong. And past that point, I wasn't like blown away. But I don't know that that's too bad for the Outlaws, I guess. As like just a third man hit scan specialist. Like, I'm okay with it.
Joe, you say like you haven't heard much fanfare, but anytime I go into Reddit, someone's like, "Man, how come Merit hasn't been picked up? You know, Merit's one of the top players. He hasn't been picked up."
And I
see
get
all the
that,
time.
but I respect you know, let's say experts' opinions, yours, somebody like Kenobi's a little bit more, that are like, yeah, he's been good, but like there have been better people. And I'm like, oh, that's actually kind of a little sad, but like, okay, let's hear about those people, right? Like the level of hype that I had for him, the level of potential I thought he could kind of get to, didn't kind of stay consistent, and that's what kind of had me worried. I think he still has potential, and I think he'll actually do really well. So like with Dante and Pelican as just like a flex piece, like he's probably going to have a couple metas where he does really well. He always struck me as kind of a flashy player, kind of a hero mindset. Like he's going to make those plays. He's going to go out there. He's going to do the flanks. He's going to try to make those big hero plays. And sometimes they work, and sometimes they win. They won them games. But I just don't. It's not like a huge signing. It seems like another one of the archetypes that teams are following, where it's like you either go for like a weird kind of like hyper flex projectile as your third man, or you just go like Ons as a third man. You lock down that hit scan role, and you just kind of bank on, you know, possibly some of these older metas coming back into vogue, and really having somebody that can kind of compete at a world-class level, which I think Merit can do, but maybe he still is going to have some consistency issues from way back when.
Okay. Anything you want to drop in there, Yiska, before I go on my spiel? There's a spiel coming.
No, not really.
Just full warning.
To be fair, like the way how the Outlaws have moved this offseason, just like which other players they were looking at and missed out on, Merit made a lot of sense. So I'm not as surprised by this. I knew they were in the market, and I think it's surprising, like how low the priority list Merit must have been. But yeah, that they eventually ended up with him. It's not too surprising from my point of view.
I think it's a good fit, honestly. And Houston probably, I don't know. Like, I mean, we heard of some of their other options. Like obviously, EasyHan was rumored. We had actually discussed EasyHan on this podcast as well in terms of where he would be on this team. So we knew that Outlaws were looking for hit scan. They got to replace Happy. I mean, Dante and Pelican are there, but neither of them are like serious hard hit scan players, you know, and that's what they were looking for. Someone that was going to be that hard hit scan player for them to fill Happy's role that's been vacated. I guess they could have gone for a player from anywhere, but I don't know if there are any really insane hit scans in the Western market currently that have not been picked up and are of age. The one guy you want is Kai, but he's on Atlanta. So if you can't get Kai, then I guess you're looking for a Korean rookie or something like that. And of those available, Merit would have been pretty high on the list. As far as pure, like, if we just look at only DPS and we're not looking at, like, you know, only hit scans, Merit's pretty, well, he's not low on the list, but he's below the guys like the Propers, obviously. He's below the MN3s. Sure. I'd say he's even below the Zess. So in terms of priority of all of these new, potentially insane rookies coming on through, Merit was definitely behind a lot of people. Make no mistake about that. I was surprised that both Becky and Gurio got picked up before Merit, because I felt like I would have personally have had Merit a little higher. I still trust Rush. I still think, you know, from Dallas's POV, they saw something they liked in Gurio, and, you know, and Rush has proven track record of knowing how to develop talent. So, look, if he's happy with that, I got no question to doubt him. But I would have, from my perspective of having casted both of their matches over the past couple of years in Korea, Merit was definitely the better player. And speaking of casting specific players, careers, Merit's a fun player in the fact that he is one of the few players I can tangibly say I've casted almost his entire career from day one to current day, in terms of his literal debut in Overwatch Contenders, which is what I deem to be like the start of your the actual start of your like quote unquote pro career is you kind of have to at least be at the contenders level for me. Yeah, he debuted in 2018 season 2 of Contenders Pacific when I was still doing Contenders Pacific on New Paradigm. Fun fact, but a lot of people don't know this. One of his teammates back then. I'm gonna just check this to make sure I've got it done. No, I've confused it with a different person. I was going to say one of his teammates was Lee Jae Gon, but Lee Jae Gon was on a different team, but they both debuted the same season. I'm not. I think Lee Jae Gon debuted the exact same season that Merit did on a different team. Yeah. 2018 season 2. Yeah, first Contenders game. Yeah, this is the same season. Lee Jae Gon was on Monster Shield Korea, and Merit was on New Paradigm. And there's some other players on this New Paradigm team that I don't think ended up making it super far, but that's just besides the point. So I've seen Merit pretty much his entire career. I would say, in terms of outside commentators, I'm not talking about commentary in terms of casting, commentators in terms of just people talking about this player. There's probably no one outside of me, and you probably say Pixie because he was there casting with me, but as the analyst in Nigeria, there's probably no one in the English-speaking world that's seen more of Merit than I have, that's casted more of Merit, that's analyzed more of Merit than I have. I don't want to just go and say like, yeah, I'm like the foremost expert on Merit, but from like a pure time spent, there's not a human being on this planet in the English speaking world that's seen more games of Merit than I have. So that being the case, he's had an interesting career to me, where I think he's deserving of some level of hype, but I don't think he's necessarily like a top pickup. Like, he's not my number one choice. He's probably not my number 2 or even third choice in terms of who I'm really gunning for if I am a team looking for rookie talent. I think Houston had to, I hate to use the S word here, but settle somewhat for Merit because he was the best of what was left remaining. I mean, I make that sound bad, but what's left remaining is still pretty good. Like, that's not bad. Or we're talking about Contenders career, for fuck's sake. Like, they got a shitload of talent in there. So even and let's be real as well. Like, you got Glads who picked up Skewed last year, who was a bottom tier player who ended up being fucking phenomenal. So like, it doesn't even, the priority and like the hierarchy of like who's the best and who's not, sometimes doesn't even matter if you can just find the diamond in the rough. I'm not saying that's always going to happen, because I think Skewed is like maybe a one-time thing, and I expect Proper to be an absolute god. He's simply too good to not be. So he's going to be one of those players that absolutely will be that guy. But Merit's had a career where he's had to play against Proper, and also had to play, then being on the same team as Proper. And obviously Proper outclassed him both times. I mean, that's not even like a crazy statement to make. Proper did the same thing to Pelican anyway. Merit's just like, he's a good player, but I don't think he's ever, to me, been like number 1 on any list. He's never been dominant enough for me to be like, yeah, he's the best X or Y hero in Korea right now. Never said that about him. Could never describe him that way. Everything he's played, I feel like someone else has definitely been better. That player usually, a lot of times, actually has been Proper, funny enough. And maybe that's just unlucky because he has to play in Proper shadow, which everyone else had to do. But Merit, when I say he struggled this season being the most recent season, I think a lot of teams in Contenders Korea weren't fully adapted to season 2 because of all the Sombra stuff. Because Sombra is such a specialized hero, I feel like guys like Merit are better on the hard hit scans, the Cassidy's, the Ashes, the Widowmakers. Definitely the Cassidy and the Ashes. I feel like his Widowmaker is reasonable, but not up there. Okay. And he was forced to play a lot of Sombra, and I feel like he had a really okay Sombra, but it wasn't. No one's going to be Lip, so we're not looking for Lip. Lip put Sombra onto a level that is unattainable for literally anyone else in existence.
Agreed.
So we're not looking for Lip, but I'm looking for like, can we get 80% of Lip? Can we get 70%?
Can we get like a Doha? 60%?
At least a Doha. Can we get a Doha level Sombra that's like a percentage of Lip, just to even like get a taste of what that's of the possibility? And so everyone was kind of just gunning for like, some level that could be a good Sombra, but obviously not at lip level. And I think a lot of Sombras in Korea did struggle in that regard because you either had flex players that just they had to learn Sombra like Ardo, and that's definitely not a hero that like. I mean, the Ardo's a guy that wants to play Genji and stuff. He wants to play projectors. He don't want to be playing Sombra. And Merit is, I mean, a lot of maybe it's easier for like a hit scan player to go to Sombra, but even then, to me, Sombra is such a specialized hero that it's just hard for most players to really master, especially when you had one guy that set the fucking bar so high that everyone else looks dog shit compared to him on that specific hero. So he, to me, struggled somewhat due to the circumstance of being put on this hero that is very specialized. That's he just did reasonable. He was like a workhorse kind of Sombra, nothing special. Did what he needed to do. Shined a lot more in hit scan metas where he could be the Ashe player next to Proper's Tracer in this year's O2 Blast iteration, which is mega successful, obviously. And I think the biggest thing about Merit that speaks to his quality is the fact that he started over Kilo for a majority of the season. Because I would have said that Kilo's Ashe and Kilo's hit scan was more impressive at a lot of points compared to Merit's, but there was something about Merit's quality that Smash, O2 Boss, and the O2 Blast staff decided was more worthwhile putting him as a starter than a bench. And that could have been the Sombra difference. Because look, it sounds like I'm bagging on Merit Sombra, but Kilo Sombra is like not even close to being that good. I'll take Merit Sombra over Kilo Sombra any day, but then that might legitimately be it. Like, you gotta play Tracer Sombra. Well, who's the best Sombra on your team? If it's Merit, then he's starting, I guess. But even in hit scan minutes, I felt like he played more Ashe, and he started a little bit more. Well, he had a lot more opportunity, and Kilo still wasn't playing a huge amount. So that definitely speaks to Merit's quality a little bit. But I think people need to temper their expectations a little bit. I feel like I've done a decent job of tempering because, even now you go into threads about Merit and it's like, yeah, well, I mean, I remember AVRL saying like he's like good, but he's not like insane. So, maybe he's just like over here. He's just kind of like above average. And I'd say that's about correct. He's definitely above average. He's not some S tier player. He's going to be a workhorse. He will get the job done. And I think he's a good fit for Houston again, back to my original point, because he is what Houston needs. And Houston have a majority Korean roster this time around as well. I'm sure that'll be fine for him. I don't know if he'll be a starter at all, depending on the meta for Houston. I also think when you look at from Houston's POV, I don't know if there was a better option. I don't know. And again, I hate to use the word settle because it has such negative connotations, but of the remaining hit scans, yeah, this guy probably was the best choice. And so I think you can be happy. I think people, I don't want people to be upset like, oh no, Houston didn't get a good player. Well, I mean, they still got a pretty good player. They didn't get the MN3 because there's no way. Philly was not going to let MN3 go. So you can just remove that thought out of your brain. And out of the players that was left, like Merit was still a really good choice. So yeah. And now Houston have two players in their team with the number one in their name, Merit and Iris. So there you go.
True. Yeah, I mean,
that's my spiel. I told you how to spiel. That's my whole spiel.
The average of ones in a team equates to overall success as a positive correlation. Now, I mean, when you look at that DPS trio, I do think it has a lot of punching power. I think a lot of people maybe listening to Merit playing Sombra maybe are like, okay, but why does that matter when you have Dante? I would also like to point your direction or your eyes to how Tracer was treated last year, right? Like, she went from being this like hit scan, like side character that you almost needed a main player for, to becoming something that the flex was actually playing. So like these roles can be interchangeable, right? Like, this game is ever changing, on top of the fact that we're getting Overwatch 2. I know that that's the big like elephant in the room that we don't necessarily want to bring up at every discussion, because you definitely could and just say like, well, we don't know, Overwatch 2, herdy-der. But I think in this scenario, when you look at like Sombra's rework, when you look at like the overall changes, like, we can't necessarily paint with the same colors that we did in the past, at least too much, right? We can't evaluate that specifically from the past. I know that's the only thing that we kind of can do, but I wouldn't be rigid with that. I would say like, okay, well, what if you need your hit scan to play Sombra? What if there are certain positions on maps that you need, instead of Cassidy, you want to switch to Sombra or whoever, right? Like that could be a possibility, and that's something that Bear can bring to the table that maybe Dante can't, right? Like there's possibilities here. It is a little bit more flexible. I think he's a little bit more flexible than just like the hard hit scan, but like that's definitely where his bread is buttered for sure. So I would echo a lot of what Avril's saying. I like it. It kind of Houston kind of shaping up to be a pretty scary team, has a lot of potential.
Yeah, it's I think Houston still, I believe Jake is going to be coaching this year. That's what all the rumors say. Houston haven't released a statement on that yet, but
barely
all the rumors,
Dante's has said that. So.
All the, I mean,
take that with a grain of salt.
We'll take that. Yeah, we'll take that for what it's worth for now. But
right.
I mean, it's hard to say because Jake, it's probably likely and true that Jake will be coaching again, but it's not impossible that he'd still be on a player contract and has a possibility of playing. So it's too hard to write that in concrete right now. But we'll assume that he is just going to be a coach, and by that assumption, it's only going to be Dante, Pelican, Merritt as the DPSs, which also makes a lot of sense because do you really need 4 DPSs? It feels like a bit overkill. Like I even look at teams like Dallas, like they have 4 DPS. I'm like, bro, that's a lot of people.
They're very much overcompensating. Like we do not want to be in the position we were last year.
There's 2 players on your team on that role that's going to be benched. And I imagine Sparkle's never going to get benched. So 2 out of Doha, Edison, and Guri are going to be benched at either point in the season. And you're right, it does feel a little bit overcompensation because you're like, we had no hit scans last year. Let's get 2 this year. We're going to get Edison and Guri. We're going to get 2 hit scans. But it's it's fine. You got the money and you want to be prepared for a double hit scan meta. Power to you. Again,
so you make a little bit more content. Oh well.
Yeah. I don't know why I've just decided to talk about the other Texan team. I'm just, I'm stuck.
I mean, it kind of brings up an interesting point. Which team do you guys think is better as it stands right now? Obviously, Houston needs to make a few more moves, but get off the fence a little bit.
Spotify listeners,
who do you like more? I really don't know, to be honest. If I'm gonna jump in to get off the fence, like I don't. Is there one that you guys like would put a stake into?
Bro, you have Fearless and Harbin on one team, and you don't have Fearless and Harbin on the other team.
True. That is a big one.
Is there more that needs to be said?
But Fearless and Harbin can't play at the same time.
True, but you have everything covered.
Either one of them, I will still take over Piggy. No offense to Piggy, but
full offense.
But both Fearless and Harbin are like S tier tank players, so it's like
honest to God.
Embarrassment of riches on that team. It's unreal.
Yeah. If tank is going to be as important as we assume it should be, I would say Dallas has a significant edge in that department. Yeah. I like Pelican, don't get me wrong. I like a lot of the Houston players. I like Jungpuck, but there again you have Rush, right? Like Dallas has got a lot going for him this season, for sure.
Man, I'm about to have a hot take.
All right.
I'm interested to hear why.
New timestamp. Yiska's hot take.
Get it on Reddit.
The thing is, okay, here's my problem. I don't want to underestimate Rush again, right? Like I feel like I've done that too much, and falling into the trap of doing that again is dumb as hell, right?
Do we need to get like Guard on the phone just to like maybe convince you otherwise? Like, yeah, bro, he's legit. Like,
my thing is, bro, Edison's not a good pickup. I think they will still have issues there. I feel like Piggy is not that far behind. I feel like Pelican is.
Sorry, I just woke up. Piggy? It's not far behind who?
Either of the two. I mean, of course, in main tank heroes, like I can't say. And I think like when we play main tank heroes, yes, of course, Dallas will slap. Hanbin, yeah. I think like Hanbin is like an S tier, S plus, and Piggy is an S tier.
Wow, that close.
Yeah.
I gotta look.
I don't know. I
Continue.
think
That is
that's
wild to me.
That's very generous for Piggy.
Yeah.
I'll say that much. That's my opinion.
It's hard to evaluate the backline. I think that might actually be the crux of it.
Sure, I'll take that. I think that's it.
It's also, by the way, Iris Lastro is double flex, whereas Chio Fielder is the traditional main and then flex.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit different there.
Yeah, I also don't know enough about Chio. But then again, I should probably just give
He's great.
Rush the benefit of the doubt. I think it's close. I think you would have to have Dallas ahead a little bit, but just based on giving Rush the benefit of the doubt. But I don't think it's like I'd not be surprised if Houston ends up being the better team.
I think you are. I think you are justified in saying that Edison is probably not going to hit the mark for like what you. If you want to be a top team, and by top team I mean a team that can contend for the actual championship, Edison to me is currently not a player that can contend for a championship. Gurrio is a little bit more untested, but even like I said earlier, like I had this guy below Merit, so if for me I would have at face value I would have taken Merit over Gurrio. Now I don't know what goes on behind the scenes, and maybe there's more intangibles that Gurrio brings to the table. Maybe there's more potential there that Rush sees compared to Merit, who's had a longer career, and Gurrio's a bit more of a, I think they're both rookies, technically speaking, but Gurrio's had a much more brief career, whereas Merit's been around for a little while. So maybe Rush is just looking for a player that he can mold more than someone that's been around. In either case, there is a theory that I have that if Dallas gets into a double hit scan meta, which is quite rare, but still a strong possibility in Overwatch 2. Like who the hell knows, man? Yeah. Hit scan could be really fucking good, and then if it is, you're gonna get a double hit scan meta. If your double hit scan is Edison Gurrio, I don't hate it, but
I'm not impressed.
Are you necessarily? I mean, you got Ans, Patty, and Kevster on Glads. Look, Patty needs a bit of time to warm up, but I've seen this guy at his peak. He's pretty damn good. Kev has a couple of hit scans that he can maybe bring to the table. You got, I mean, to be fair to Dallas, they're one of the few teams that actually have a double hit scan lineup, whereas most teams don't. They have a single hit scan plus projectile, or plus flex rather. So, I'll put it this way: you're up against Soul. It's Profits.
Yeah.
Both Fitz is going to bring to the table a fucking phenomenal hit scan, and Profit can also, he's flexible enough to also pick up a really good hit scan as well. So are you beating Profits with Edison Gurrio? And you have to ask those questions because you're going to get into an international where Seoul plays against Dallas because they're both going to be top teams. Who's going to win if it's double hit scan meta? I feel like Gurrio Edison stocks aren't super high in that comparison.
And to all of the commenters that are, I think obviously molding at like, oh, well, Rush found a way to do it last year. Why can't he just do it again? And to that, I would say, sorry, miracles don't work that way.
My guy would literally be a genie granting his third wish if he could do that.
like Dallas's story last year is still like mind bending, but is like at the core of what's kind of beautiful about Overwatch, that you can kind of find those like meta defining, like last minute Torb virus, like, oh, we didn't even think of that. That's actually so good. And you just start to kind of write the book of the metagame from that point forward, right? Like you've ended the chapter. Now we're doing what Dallas wants. And you force everybody to adapt to you because of your deficiency, right? Because you don't have Xe. Just doing that again is like repaint the Mona Lisa for the first time. Like that's not something you can just like summon at will. Of course, there are probably going to, at least hopefully, there are going to be in Overwatch 2's first, competitive season, some more creative looks, some more artistic takes on, okay, we can't play a double hit scan. We can maybe, argue this, or maybe we'll try to do that, right? There's going to be something else that maybe could fit in certain teams' wheelhouses a little bit more than others. Maybe that's the case. But we can't just rely on Rush to just perform miracle after miracle when just painted into a corner, right? Like that's just not feasible for one man to do, or one coaching staff rather. End rant. He's only human, people. Please.
Yeah, there's a lot of mysteries. But I at least think Dallas is far more prepared to make miracles happen. I don't think they're going to be required to make miracles happen, but they're a lot more prepared because they've kind of filled all the gaps super early. So, to end that discussion, I do feel like Dallas currently has the stronger roster, which is not a hot take. That's like the coldest take ever. So, yeah, Dante and the fellas on the Houston Outlaws this year rather.
Dude, the Piggy comparison, I'm still mulling about, bro. I don't know what you're.
Yiska, you've sent Joe. You've sent him
smoking some. I want what you're taking.
Why? Literally, why?
He played Sigma.
Yeah.
That's it.
I mean,
Pigma.
I think, like, even if you look at Rookie of the Year voting, like, I think a lot of people had
mind bending.
Okay, right. I mean, I'm now justifying my argument by citing Overwatch League votes that are Jeremy Pepega. Maybe I'm losing based on that.
I definitely trust the casual voters to decide who's better.
No, it's not just the casual voters. It's actually the coaches that said Piggy was
which is
Rookie of the Year. Yeah,
nuts to me. Like, if you want to argue and if somebody wants to like point to me like specific roles that he was forced to do that made him statistically underwhelming, then sure. Even through the eye test, I wasn't like immensely impressed outside the Sigma, which also is supported through statistics, which I agree. The Pigma is fucking PogChamp. I want to see more of that shit. Let's go.
Still worse than Hanbin's. It's good, but Hanbin's Sigma was still better than Piggy's. Just
that's like that's kind of like the issue that I have like harping in on that argument is like, bro, Hanbin's actually just fucking nuts. Like, nobody talks about him.
Yeah.
Statistically, he's a fucking monster. He can play everything at like a pretty high level.
Yeah.
Like, this kid's nuts. Like, it's like comparing somebody to like Proper. You know what I mean? Like, it's just not fair. It's like, I'm not saying it is. I'm just comparing the feeling.
Too many stacked off.
The mouth feel. Okay.
I mean, couldn't you say the same thing about Void or like about?
You know what? And funny you mentioned this. I had to go back for a recent article. It'll come out when it comes out. To look at Void in particular. Statistically, not that impressive. Not shocking. Not to Void. Like, you hear Void, you're like, oh, this kid's top 5. This kid's pounding.
You know why?
First kills. Because everybody else was fucking doing it.
Because Hanbin came into the scene on a Paris roster that eventually became like a dominant roster.
True.
And hasn't ever been not dominant. I don't think Hanbin has ever been middle of the pack. Whereas I think we've had seasons where Void has just been like an okay player. Like, he's not been like the monster that he is currently on Shanghai.
Yep.
And so there's like a different. This is why Void is like one of the most criminally underrated players, because people keep remembering when he was just like on Gladiators and he was like good, but he's not like fucking
not
insane.
incredible.
And you know, and just his past of being behind other people. I don't know. I think Void has built himself up to be like one of, if not the best, right next to Hanbin. I still think Hanbin's better, but right next to Hanbin.
Right.
So yeah. But that aside, Dallas versus Houston will be a fun exchange.
For sure.
And by the way, and even talking about the hit scans even further, because we were on this topic, but while I was looking through the rosters, I did see another pretty dominant hit scan duo that could be, if we're going to talk about this hit scan in a little bit more of a serious fashion, there's a couple out there. Shy Pineapple, nutty. Carpe MN3, fucking nutty. So
true, yeah.
If you're Dallas and you have Edison Guerrero, I don't know if you're beating Carpe MN3 or Shy Pineapple or Profits.
Yeah. You're not brute forcing them. Like, you're not just
wildly powerful DPSs in his scan. Yeah,
agreed. Like, you are very much shifting your resources away from trying to put the DPS into like really advantageous positions, and like you're trying to like edge out tank battles. You're trying to get more value out of your support resources. Like, it's not just going to be like winning, like brute forcing aim duels against some of these people. Like, I don't know if Dallas can hang that way. Maybe they can find some other edges, but
Hanbin will be his demigod powers will be tested in that situation. When your 2 hit scans are getting diffed by the other 2 hit scans, the difference maker is going to be someone like Hanbin to really pull the weight of the rest of the team
Yeah.
to fill that gap, because it will be a gap. That aside, though, pretty happy with how these rosters are looking. I think both the Texan rosters are in a good place right now, and happy to move on to talking about some of these other players and teams. Let's go with Molly to Charge first and foremost.
My guy.
Are you high on Molly, Joe?
I'm huffing that. We're 10 minutes in, right? We're not gonna get hit with the algorithm. Yeah, bro. I'm sniffing Molly. I'm boofing Molly. I'm all about Molly, bro. I've been it since day one.
Joe is high on Molly. We said the line. We did it.
I want that on a t-shirt.
With his face on it, hopefully, so people don't get too confused.
Yeah, not too confused.
Fun fact, Molly and Merritt were on the same team back in the day on LG Huya. And that's a winning roster that eventually imploded because they did absolutely nothing at Gauntlet. Sadly, it's not a good representation of Chinese Overwatch at that time. Molly, though, has since had a pretty good career. But this is, by the way, Overwatch League champion Molly coming into Guangzhou Charge, and he's not the only one.
Got a ring.
It's Molly and Develop. So you have 2 out of currently 7 players that are Overwatch League champions on this team. Unfortunately, they were both bench players, but I think Molly improves this roster by quite a lot. I feel much better about the Charge. I mean,
significantly.
We talked a little bit about theoretically, like, oh, if Molly joined Charge, what would that be like? I think we all unanimously agreed it would be a great pickup.
Yeah. I will not hear any slander that somehow Molly is worse than Kareev. Yes, I understand. Rollstar. Yes, I understand. He's got some pop-off INF performances. His Zen. Hey, I don't know how I defend his Zenyatta, but somehow here we are. I think Molly is just infinitely more consistent, infinitely more safe. And maybe some people view that the wrong way, or view it in a negative light, that like safe is a bad thing. No, when you have somebody that like demands the attention of your team be, pilloried around you, speaking to Kareev's playstyle, it feels like not a good thing, not a good look to have like the color of the team be painted around your specific style. I think Molly's a little bit more flexible in that way, a lot more consistent across the board. It is going to be a significant upgrade for this team in the long run, 100%.
Stable player. I remember fondly watching his performances as a starting flex support on Chengdu in 2020. A bit of a shame we never got to experience more of him last year. He got a few token games from Moon, just be like, yeah, here's a Valiant game you can play, Molly. But I think the guy is deserving of a starting position somewhere. It was just never going to be on Shanghai, sadly.
Oh, God, no. Not the slightest.
Are you ready for my hot take?
Shut up.
It's not about Molly per se.
It better not be about Kareev.
No.
He's about to talk about Izayaki again.
No, I'm about to talk about Charge.
Okay.
Charge feels like Charge is the Washington Justice of this season. And not like how Washington Justice was last season, but how Washington Justice is shaping up to be this season. And why I say this is like they are absolute jails for potentially amazing players.
Opportunity jail. I like it.
Bro, Choice A1 and Mag
what you mean. I know what you mean.
Man. That roster is not going to do shit, right? Am I wrong?
Charge. I still if they don't achieve a lot, I think I look back at the coaching staff and I look back on more internal issues.
I mean, that's definitely a
sector
where
had
I
a lot
have
of internal
pro.
issues. Because I look at last year's Charge roster and I still think I expected them to do more. And they started to get some good momentum towards the end, but they had a couple of areas that just massively failed on, and they never adequately, filled the gap of Mike Cayley. Or did they? I suppose no. Eileen Choi was a pretty decent duo. I mean, I'll actually rewind on that. I'll take that comment back actually. And yeah, I think their backline was pretty weak, and now they've got a bit more of an upgrade. I think Apex is a bit more competitive. The fact that Valiant are bringing a competitive roster is quite scary for a team like the Charge.
I mean,
because
this is
Valiant used to be a free win.
This is my get off my fence. Is this a better roster than the Valiant?
Yeah.
On talent alone, yes.
Not by much. It's a lot closer than it used to.
Pure pound to pound talent, yes.
Yep. Agreed. I feel very similarly about a different team that's pink and blue. I feel like the Spark are the Justice of APAC, where they're just an absolute you have the laundry list of who's who when it comes to like off-season like star pickups, and then just somehow fumble the bag astronomically. Like somebody down bad at a strip club. Like it's bad, bro. Like that last season fucking hurt my soul. Take me to church. Like put me out to pasture. I was depressed after last season. You have Shy coming in. Homie doesn't even play. You had like
to be fair, he only missed 2 games.
No, I know, but still, it's like a travesty.
Yeah, I don't know.
Spark's goofy, man.
Spark is another team that got kind of riddled with management issues that negatively impacted that team. But both the Joe teams, we've talked about this before, both the Joe teams are at high risk of being bottom 2 in APAC. I still think Valiant will be somewhere in the bottom half of APAC, but it's just unclear where currently. Are they going to be last? They're going to be second to last, third to last? They're going to be right in the middle? Hard to say. But yeah, those are the 3 teams currently in my bottom 3. Charge, Spark, Valiant, right? So
yeah, I would agree.
Charge have been improved. I actually, when I look at these rosters from a pure talent perspective, who do I like the most? Probably the Spark. And it scares me to say that because I think I agree with Joe that Spark to me feels more like, where good talent gets wasted in the APAC region.
Sadly. Because that team could be very good.
Because right now I look at this roster, I'm like, first of all, they've overkilled the tank position. They've got way too many tanks. But then again, the embarrassment of riches. Even if you don't like Burner, which people don't, you saw Gushue and Liga, who are pretty damn good. Even though Liga didn't get a chance to play at all last season for reasons. Then you got Shy, who is a mega carry on this team. Like this guy is a phenomenal player. Shy with any of the other 3 options, Architect, Pineapple, or Alpha Yi. I suspect that my starting lineup out of this would be Shy, Alpha Yi. That would be my choice if I were coaching this team right now, without having seen any of their current scrims or whatever. I don't even know if they are scrimming. Shy, Alpha Yi to me, I think are the primary here. But on a pure talent perspective, that's fucking phenomenal. But even Charge, I mean, I think Charge are more front loader on DPS talent. Because develop Eileen Choice of one that's a nutty lineup. The rest of the lineup starts to not be as exciting, even with the addition of Molly. Like Molly's good, but to me, he's. I don't think anyone looks at Molly and expects this guy to be like an alarm level talent, or or a fielder or an Izayaki or any of those guys. I think Molly is going to be, a very solid talent, but we're not expecting him to be right at the top of the list, which is why I'm saying Charge to me is a front-loaded team on DPS, because I think Choi and Develop could potentially get to that level. I don't know if they're there now. Choi Juan might have been held back by his team a little bit too much, but we've seen some of Choi's peaks, and it's actually his mechanics are dominant. I've seen how good Developers as well, so he just needs to be actually starting on a lineup and have time to be scrimming with the starting lineup instead of just being a bench guy that came in halfway through a season to replace another bench guy. So yeah, his developed season was so weird last year. It's kind of strange, but Charge don't have the tank supports, in my opinion, to match a team like Spark. So Charge, unfortunately, are looking like either second to last or last, even with the addition of Molly, which is quite sad, but also speaks to the improvement of the rosters across the board for APAC.
Yeah, agreed. It's, I think, most regions overall, or most regions, like there's multiple outside of 2, right? Like, I think overall everybody's kind of leveled up. Definitely gotten a lot more competitive, at least on paper. Obviously, that remains to be seen when we skip ahead 6 months. But yeah, I would tend to agree. Like, this is probably a good shout for bottom team if Valiant actually does step it up, which it feels like they probably have a good shot to.
Who do we have next?
Speaking of the Valiant, could go there.
Yeah, okay, we might as well go Valiant. Then Lengsa rumored to go to the Valiant. So I don't think we talked too much in detail. I think we felt like Lengsa being he was let go from the Chengdu Academy team with Chaser, which means either he was leaving, retiring, Chengdu didn't want him anymore, or he managed to get on a team. And he managed to get on a team. Well, he's rumored to have been on a team now, to get on a team. So he's in the Valiant. We'll be playing next to Coldus. No Mika, but it'll be Coldus Lengsa, which is still pretty dang good. I take that, Giro. That's pretty good. Next to Innovation, Dia Becky, and also supposedly Wu Hiao is the current tank. So we actually have, based on that, we have a 6-man roster for Valiant if we include the rumors. It's a reasonable roster. I still don't know if it gets them past the halfway mark.
No,
Probably not.
That's tough.
I still think Valiant, Charge, Spark will have this interesting 3-way where they're all going to be fighting for not being last, obviously, but also they'll be really competing hard against each other. I feel is my take on where this roster currently is. I think Lengsa is a player that deserves a shot somewhere, but his options are pretty limited because he's a Chinese main support, and let's be real, Chengdu is your most likely destination. However, they already have 2 main supports. In fact, they got 4 total supports. They got 2 flex and 2 main supports. Still signed Yveltal and Nisha there. So there is no space for Lengsa to rejoin that team. I think Lengsa used to be on Chengdu proper a little while back in the day, but obviously his position's just been taken by 2 players now. There's no shot there. Hangzhou Spark is, I think, the next best destination for a Chinese player because they have right now 50% Chinese roster. But Super Rich just joined that roster, so I mean, Lengsa wasn't going to go there either, which basically leaves Valiant, Charge, and Charge usually have smaller rosters. Valiant seems like a pretty good choice considering. I think it's another good fit. It's like, to me, I look back at Merit and Houston, and I feel like both teams get a win out of that in terms, or both parties get a win out of that in terms of what they're looking for. Right? This is a good place for Lengsa to be because it's probably his last destination that's available. And also Valiant are looking for a main support, and if they want a Chinese one, this is probably the next one up. I don't know if they were going to get a Chinese one or a Korean one. Possibility that Valiant could have gotten a Korean main support as well. They're definitely open to Korean players this season, so jury's out on what the other options were. Looking back now, I don't even know if there are like a ton of amazing main supports still out there in Korea. Now, look, in the Western world, I mean, there's a shitload of good main supports left in the Western world. In Korea, it's not as deep, and the depth of talent maybe is not huge for that particular role. So Lengsa seems to be a pretty good choice on that. And just as a fun aside as well, back in the day, I believe it was Packing 10 who was saying that he would have liked to have Lengsa on the Valiant in 2020. Well, 2 years later, with the Valiant moving to China, Packing 10's wish has finally been achieved.
There you go. On
a full Chinese, well, not a full, but in near full Chinese squad now. Lengsa finally made the Valiant.
It seems like fine. I think, he was definitely somebody that kind of orbited a lot of different Chinese teams back when I was covering it, and like, he was good. Definitely not the best, but like, probably deserved a shout at OWL. And now that there's a little bit more space for Chinese talent, yeah, excited to see him play. I'm very much looking forward to seeing how, obviously, the tanks kind of file out. If it is just Wu Hiao, I'm a little concerned. I just don't know that he's going to be able to obviously solo it, which kind of leaves me hoping that
he's not meant to.
He's
I'm also a coach. Yeah.
Agreed. Yeah. So like, that's a lot. And I guess, I don't know, in like a weird pipe dreamy sense, like I hope IGC just like leaves well enough alone and just gives the coaching staff like free reign, doesn't really have much to say, and just lets them work. Because I think that's probably the best chance for Valiant to actually like succeed.
IGC's not even managing the team. It's LGE's managing the team.
Yeah.
And by all accounts of comments through the grapevine,
Mm.
No Hill has full command of the ship. He's steering the boat currently.
That's awesome.
So
I'm glad to hear that, because we've seen what No Hill can do, and if he likes,
that's the other thing. Is any player that joins this team, I feel like gets a No Hill buff.
Should, yeah.
So if
much in the same way that we
Lengsa,
look at Rush and Junk Buck, yeah, you should be looking at No Hill as like a +1, right?
Like Lengsa is a pretty reasonable player, but with the No Hill buff, he could be a pretty damn good player.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And then you take this roster and you say, well, it's shaping up to be pretty comparable against teams that kind of have like what feels like -1s when it comes to the management and the coaching staff, almost either not being there or just being kind of like weird.
Just say you're talking about the two Joe teams. You can say it's Spark
pretty
and
much. and that's where it's like you're right. There is like this weird like menage a trois in the bottom of APAC where it's not going to be a bye week. It's just going to be a battle of like who maybe steals a win in a given meta against a top team, who fumbles the bag against a bottom team. Like it's going to be super competitive, and I think that's just good for the product overall, right? I think that's fucking fantastic, and in a weird way, props to the Valiant for getting like a competitive team, which doesn't seem to have cost them a ton. I think that's fair to say.
Well, I don't know how much their players cost.
I mean, true.
Yiska might know. Yiska, you've been full of hot takes today. What are your hot takes on the Valiant?
I mean, I think I said it before, but I think this team will surprise. Seemingly, I currently have them as a more solid
like
bet.
4, right?
Yeah, as a more solid bet than both the Zhao teams. I don't think Molly moves the needle much for me there.
Not high on him.
Not high on him. I
see.
I mean, we will see. Man, the problem always with this is like we're talking about a probability game, right?
Oh, I thought we were talking about drugs.
We are like in a scenario where, I mean, in all likelihood, what is really going to determine which team is better is whose meta flavor actually becomes the strongest to play at a certain point in the season, and who stands to gain most from that, right? I think, like, for instance, let's say Chengdu's composition doesn't work as well as it did last year. I'm not sure they would have the same success, or they'd rather be like a team like the Washington Justice were last year, right?
Yeah.
So, given that, I think like this is that we are never going to have satisfying resolvement of that situation, because like the probability of both of those events, like Valiant being dead last, or like Valiant would have to need to be blown out like nobody's business, like actually as bad as last year, in order to conclusively prove wrong that take was wrong, or they would have to like be very, very good in order to prove that take was right from the beginning, instead of just like them being lucky of hitting like a specific like meta iteration that really suits their team and nothing else, right? So do
you knock people for that though? Like, do you knock people for just kind of like lucking into a meta?
No, I don't fault them. I'm faulting people saying like the results at the end of the season will have any say on the salience of the statement that we're making at the moment. Okay. Right? I get you. Yeah. Like there's no like, really it's in the aggregate of all predictions we're making in order to predict like who's good. And as we've known, people are terrible at aggregating long-term performance, as proven by Platch's top 10 flex support ranking. So no, but like in actual fact, like I think the high probability, just based on coaching and like tight-knitness of this roster, and also the sourcing of underappreciated talent in this team, will, for me, more likely produce a better roster than either the Hangzhou or Guangzhou situation. So yeah, that's basically my point.
Fair play. All I heard was you hate Plat Chat.
Yeah, that is definitely a takeaway.
Don't worry, guys. Joe's still high on Molly. That's where he's currently.
Yes.
At.
Free love, baby. I love Plat Chat personally.
I mean, AVRL is literally wearing sunglasses at night. So,
by the way, let me explain that. I was going to take some time. I'm wearing my sunglasses again because Liquipedia and other parts of my screen are really bright right now.
Flashbang.
I am kind of getting flashbanged, and my eyes are still pretty sensitive because I'm in post-surgery recovery, and it's like
it's probably best to have those on.
I can look. I'm not gonna sacrifice my eyes for the purpose of like trying to be funny enough, trying to be cool by not wearing sunglasses indoors at night. But look, I'm just gonna protect my eyes. I'm sorry, that's just how it's gonna have to be. It's where my priority is. You know, that 2012 and a half vision. I gotta protect that shit. And you know, that's on my bio now. So
2012 and a half.
Yeah,
damn,
it's a real thing. 2012 and a half.
Damn.
So my vision is good enough now that I'm looking all the way at NYXL. And the fact that we all saw, I looked in the past and I saw Kooky joining this team even before Halo leaked it.
Shocking.
I was like, I think Kooky might join this team.
Yeah.
And now he joined this team in what I think is the least surprising move of the entire offseason. Would we say this is the least surprising move? It's it's right up there. Kooky is officially announced on NYXL after everyone basically already knew anyway. But it's kind of like the old Mayhem guys joining NYXL with who else is on this team now?
Yaki, Gangnam
yeah, so those are some of the old Mayhem guys. Okay, you got Kellen, Myongbong, Flora as well. So you've joined one returning player from New York, a dynamite rookie in Kellen, and then a pretty solid flex support in Myongbong, and then obviously Gangnam Jin, who we all know, pretty proven player, and then Yaki, who's also a pretty phenomenal player in his own right. And now this team has exactly 5 players. They've hit the minimum standard for how many people you need to get into the first roster lock or the first like roster submission date. I believe they need 6 by the next, but
6 by March,
something like that.
Something like that.
So Kooky,
coming up soon.
Yeah, March 1st, I believe. So they're gonna have to get somebody else. Probably are gonna end up being a tank. Don't know who Kooky's gonna get on that one. Who's the off tank? Was it Gargoyle? Is Gargoyle available?
Gargoyle.
Where's he at?
I believe so. If he is not retired, I believe he's up for signature.
I think he could be. I think Gargoyle could be a look.
Yeah, he says he's active.
Because there's a few teams that don't have an off tank currently. Soul is one of them.
True.
So it's either Kooky's going to ring up the phone and get his mates. You know, Kooky's career could be like following in the same trajectory as like a Rush or a Moon, where he's just like, he's Christopher Nolan and he only hires people he's worked before with. So it's like he has a very specific cast that he likes to work with, and that's it. Yep. So it's Mother Kooky with all his kids.
And I can't blame anybody for like really leaning into that when you're going into such a chaotic, like unsure time with Overwatch 2. Like, we don't know what this game's gonna be. Like, I want to work with people who I know.
Yeah. So
like,
I think
I know their intangibles, right? Like, I would say so.
Yeah.
I would say a lot of the former Mayhem guys that are still obviously active are probably in discussions. I would have to imagine, you know, with all of the former players there, it kind of just makes sense, right? To me, I don't think you need to do too much more, but I also agree with your point that you made in a show previous that, like, because they're moving back to NA, you probably need to overcompensate and build out a wider roster.
Yeah. So, otherwise, you're going to have visa problems.
Yeah, you're going to run into a Dallas.
I was like, blah, blah, blah is 8 players. No excuse for New York. Which team was I talking about? There was another team that was going to have 8 players, and it was like, oh, Titans. Yeah. If Titans are getting 8 players, if Vancouver's getting 8 players, New York has no excuse. That's what I said last week, and I stick by it. So that being said, I think New York should get Gargoyle or someone like that, and then one more DPS, one more support. They need a main support. If they want to really round out the roster, they need a main support, and they need what else? They need. They have a hit scan, one proj. Most teams have gone for double flex, so maybe they need another flex.
Yeah, ideally.
Or someone that's flexible enough to also take some hit scan rolls, just a few. So there's a bit of work there left to do. And like I said, I mean, they're looking for a Korean main support as well. And I just said I don't know if there's any really outstanding ones left. So you'd have to dig in deep here. You'd have to really, this is going to test teams' abilities to do scouting properly. Because if you are a team that's not good at scouting and don't have a history of good scouting, you're in trouble. Like, for example, I think Brad would be fine. If you're Atlanta and you still haven't picked up X or Y players, he's got a great eye for upcoming rookies. But a lot of teams, I don't know that they do. New York kind of have, but at the same time, somehow they fumbled that last year, even though I think the rookies they did get last year were pretty damn good.
I just think it was too much of a gamble last year. Like, I feel like you needed a little bit more like stability for that core. It couldn't have just been like, who was it? Just Jonak was like.
It was literally only Jonak, yes.
Yeah, like
now
I feel
it's literally only Flora. But then again, they're not getting a bunch of rookies.
Exactly.
That's the one.
Like, it had a lot of potential. Like, I see that. I understand. But like, you saw what Kalios brought once you inserted him at the end of the season, and it was a whole fucking different team, right? Like, it was fucking like, why didn't we get to see that all season? They were very close to being good.
Sanguinar is not attached to the team, right? I think he's the next best.
I don't believe so. Yeah, I don't hate that at all.
If I was going to drop anybody's name right now, and I've been known to drop names, I would say that Sanguinar is currently my #1 Korean main support pick of the players remaining.
I like it.
So there is potentially going to be. I would like to imagine there will be some sort of scramble for off tanks and main supports as we head towards March, because it's the last position for a lot of teams to fill. Now, here's another thing though. I would have imagined that most teams by now, which is the end of January, probably expected or at least would have liked to have gotten their hands on the new game by now, because what you want to do, if you're smart, is you want to wait to get your hands on the game on Overwatch 2, play and figure out what it is you actually need, and then recruit and fill the rest of your roster around that. Well, the issue is, we're 2 months, we're not actually 2 months, we're a month and a little bit, because we have all of February, which is actually a shorter month, and then 1st of March is the cutoff, right? So you actually just have 1 month. Realistically, you have 1 month from now to figure out what you need. And I mean, roster contract negotiations take time, which means you don't have time to play Overwatch 2 and figure that shit out anymore. You just have to sign someone now. You have to already start. If you're fighting for a guy like Sanguinar, which multiple teams might be going for, you're in his DMs today. Yep. You're in his DMs yesterday, actually.
Yeah, preferably.
So that strategy of waiting to play the game is gone, which is quite sad, because I think most teams would have liked to have tested the game to figure out what they need before they are forced to sign another player. But here we are.
Yeah, I mean, if we're putting our ballot on Sanguinar, I definitely don't hate like a Sanguinar Gundam Jin backline with like an aggressive, tempo. I like it a lot. I like what I'm seeing. I think New York, again, scarily good in NA. Got a lot of teams to beat up on. A lot of teams that just historically just don't perform, no matter what kind of resources you throw at them.
I'm just saying they should get him, but knowing New York, sometimes they'll just pick up a Friday. I don't hate Friday, but it's probably one of their more down kind of players. But they'll probably end up getting who else is there? They'll get like Allbam or somebody. They'll just get some dude that's just like, yeah, you existed, and we'll just grab you, see what happens.
Yeah.
I can see that. I can totally see that happening. A few of those. Somebody's gonna have to get a dude. Not everyone's going to get the next best option.
Agreed.
Some team out there is going fuck, there's no options. I'm just going to have to get a dude.
A dude. That's a sick name. I wish somebody's gamer tag was just a dude. Can we rename?
Yeah, I don't want to encourage
a
anyone
dude
to
with a
name themselves
5K.
that. We already got someone called Someone joining the league.
True.
All right, we have a quota for awful names to say as a caster, and we've actually overfilled. The quota was actually 0, so we've actually overfilled that quota already.
Player called there.
Do we have any comments on Kuki as a coach? Is there anything we are concerned about, maybe dislike about that, or are we just kind of okay? We're pretty cool with Kuki. I feel like from his time in Runaway, I still look on that time fondly.
Yeah.
Obviously, the Mayhem season kind of rains on that parade a bit.
Little bit.
So do we have any doubts about Kuki's ability due to Mayhem's failures of this of the last season, or are we mostly in a position where we're like, yeah, we'll give him another shot? I think Kuki was fine.
I'm definitely of the latter mind. I think when you have a player that like needs time to themselves, that really like does something to the team dynamic. Strategically, I thought he was always pretty sound. Again, going back to Runaway. And yeah, I guess my big question is like, does his past, how much of his past kind of reflects in some of their next signings, right? Can we kind of spot that from a mile away, or you know, are there going to be some players brought over with the old Mayhem crew? But yeah, I would give him another shot. Definitely, I think it's worth it.
Cool. Well, that concludes, unless Yiska had something to add to that.
Nope.
That concludes discussion on movements. I mean, to be fair, this was not just Kuki. I just do a quick check on the old NYXL Twitter. This was a full staff announcement. We're mainly talking about Kuki because he's like the main guy.
Yeah.
But it's Undyne is still is the assistant coach. Nugget returns, he's the GM. Unknown returns, he's a player manager. So, but beyond that, the main talking point is definitely Kuki. So, just to get some accuracy in there, though, there's definitely more people in that management staff announcement. We'll watch fondly in terms of how they progress.
I guess the one thing that I will say about Kuki, good job on getting Yaki. If you know, you know.
If you're a real one, you know. So, I mean, look, you know, sometimes when you're Chris Nolan, you just get to take Tom Hardy with you to every movie, or I don't even know if that's an actor he uses all the time. He used them at least in Inception. You get sometimes you just get to your moon and you just get to take X and Y player with you wherever you go. Yep. Or your Rush and Sparkle just follows you wherever you go. So, hey, Yaki Kuki, they got that going on as well. Next up, we're going to be addressing the recent clip that made rounds on Overwatch related and Overwatch League related social media from DJ Wheat, who, if you don't know, what was his official position in Twitch? He worked in Twitch for over a decade in like a super high up position. I might look it up actually because I don't want to be
head of Twitch community productions.
Yeah, director of creative development at Twitch is what I'm getting from his Wikipedia. And apparently he was also part of the founding team of Twitch as well back in 2011. So he was there for 11 years, 2011 to 2022. So that's a very tenured guy at Twitch. And also, anyone that has been around esports long enough or has at least somewhat delved into esports, prior to 2010s, he was also a commentator from a while back as well, and a pretty well-known figure. Anyway, the point of this is that DJ Wheat had a clip on his stream where he talked about the fact that he was pretty against the Overwatch League exclusivity deal that Twitch came through with and felt like it was not a good move. And now, obviously, after the fact, is quite vocal about the fact that, he does have a bit of like a I told you so kind of attitude in this clip, maybe justified, but yeah, he's saying like the amount of money that Twitch paid was not worth that deal. back in 2018 for exclusive broadcast rights of the Overwatch League.
Right. Yeah, and I mean, it probably wasn't. It really depends on the on whatever tail was on that, because it wasn't just for the Overwatch League. It was also for the CDL, and it was also for not CDL. Sorry, it must have been Hearthstone at the time. And then I guess like the potential of the CDL down the line was probably at least discussed. And then also, I mean, if there is any, if we give any credence to that rumor, also that all Blizzard games were potentially connected to that. And then that would probably also entail the Activision games, which include COD and Warzone at the time, which later on became pretty big on the platform for a brief moment of time, right? So that all plays into the entire equation. Depending on what facts you consider in there, this makes more or less sense. Even though probably in hindsight it probably doesn't make too much sense, unless you believe that Twitch could have lost their market lead to other platforms that would have acquired at the time. Even though I will say, like, not only did we not get exclusivity after YouTube signed the deal, from like, you know, all Activision and Blizzard games are still broadcastable on Twitch, because it's like in Blizzard's interest to allow that as well. And this bluff that seemed to be on the table there paid off for Blizzard big time, because I don't think they would have. I mean, okay, let me say this differently. I think they would have considered it, and because they would have been out of touch enough to consider this. But I don't think it would have played off or would have been enforced for that long. In total, I think a lot of people in the space, in the know at the time, like, I don't know. I feel like a lot of the old esports heads feel validated in this. I think also the information of this was probably. I mean, it's not too big of a surprise that I think Slasher even reported on this being the case. I think Richard Lewis reported on Twitch internals not being too happy about that. I feel like we didn't learn terribly much other than maybe the number that was associated to it. I also think that we possibly have to consider that this is a highly biased take from Wheat there, but also an educated one of an old head that has been around for a long time. Yep. Which, I mean, I'm sympathetic to that viewpoint always. I also think, like, whatever, like, deal... We only ever get, like, the full circumference of that deal. And it's, for instance, like the YouTube deal. What did they say? It's like worth 90 million or something for
YouTube?
Yeah. Was it 90 or 150? Okay. But it isn't just like in monetary like values. You're not being paid that dollar amount. You're getting access in order of that to a decent degree through servers, right? We know that to be true. So, like, it is in both parties' best interest to inflate the number of that deal as well, which is why you would be skeptical of that. Not only has, I mean, it makes sense for Activision to bloat that number in order to feign more significance, but it's also in the interest of YouTube and Google to a larger extent to have that size of the deal as to not deflate the potential value that their server cost could be evaluated at, while probably costing them a fraction of what the actual, the production fraction of what, right? It's just like creating free value in that comparison there. So with all that said, I think the ability of Blizzard's sales team is demonstrated on both of those fronts.
Yep. I
don't think, like, if people, and I'm not sure, I don't think it was ever public, but the Morgan Stanley import in hindsight looks absolutely comical, dude. Like, in what was estimated. In, like, in no way was this ever a realistic estimation. This was like like some of those values have been undershot by magnitudes in terms of the sponsorship deals expected for especially individual teams to be shot at. But also at the time, like, people actually in the esports space were likely to give you the more realistic numbers that we're now arriving at. So in general, I like, Weed saying it out loud is just like injecting it into the content cycle or into the public discussion. I wasn't the least bit surprised by that statement, to be fair. Yeah. Like, I think that's something that internally makes a lot of sense. I think, like, it's a hard. It's once again, the bear case here is that probably that ability to finagle those deals isn't gone yet. I think there are currently a couple of uncertainty vectors that sales could definitely use to their advantage. Mainly the recent acquisition by Microsoft, Overwatch 2 coming out. So whatever deal needs to be finagled for the next time this is up, which, to my knowledge, if I don't recall incorrectly, is after this season, we could theoretically get it back again, maybe, right?
Maybe. Big maybe.
The question is from where? Who is not wise to this trick? Right?
Facebook.
I mean, no, please. No, dude, that sounds so cursed. I don't know. I don't know if it will be a bag. It's just like that.
Does it need to be a bag?
I don't know what it needs to be. I think the financial teams of the different parties know what that's supposed to be. But that's a record deal. 90 mil. Is it 190? Because it's the report that we read said 90, but then DJ Wake comes out and says 100. So I don't know anymore. But anyway, that deal for 2 years for Twitch to buy exclusive broadcasting rights is unreal, because I don't think Twitch has also done that ever. They've never paid for exclusive broadcasting rights from anybody. And then I don't think they ever will again. But based on what I know, they're definitely not going to do that again either, because they've kind of learned the lesson. But I personally also don't think that exclusive broadcasting rights is the correct way to go for this esport and for most esports, because maximizing reach and maximizing viewership to me is a priority. Now, I'm not, disclaimer here, I'm not a gigantic business guy, and I haven't seen the financials, and I haven't, I don't have the full context on what the financial needs are for either this esport or others. So there is a lot of speculation on what I'm talking about, but I'm definitely taking some liberties and making educated guesses here. But from my perspective, as an objective outsider looking in, I think the correct way to go is to have no exclusive broadcasting rights, maximize your viewership and your reach as much as possible, and then lean on using that reach and using that viewership to get into sponsorships and in other things that come with high viewership, as well as I think reputation is heavily tied to viewership as well. Like, people view, and when I say people, I mean just general public. I'm not talking about like financial advisor or anything. But people view your viewer counts and general popularity of the league as metrics for how healthy and successful your league is. And on some level, that's stupid, but on another level, you have to take that into account. And that's something you do have to really look at and can't ignore. And so I think we're in the state right now where we've had several years on YouTube. We're about to finish. This will be the last year on YouTube this year, currently in 2022, this season will be the last year of YouTube. The viewership has been steadily increasing since we started on YouTube, but it's still, slim in comparison to where it was on Twitch. And that's not saying like we should specifically go back only on Twitch. We should just broadcast everywhere. You look at esports like League of Legends and other esports that don't have exclusive broadcasting rights, and they do just broadcast everywhere. It's like man, you can get so much more viewership just by doing that. You can get the same amount. I firmly believe for Overwatch League we could keep the same amount of viewership we currently got on YouTube, but then double that again simply by being on Twitch at the same time.
Right.
You know, so I don't think we would lose viewership by getting off of YouTube, especially not with a new game coming out and a big marketing push. We would gain on both platforms.
For sure.
But then you come into the argument of like, well, and you know, Yiska was saying maybe there's a possibility of getting another bag. It's like, well, is the bag just too attractive? If there is a possibility of getting another bag, and for what it's worth, by the way, I don't know how confident the rest of the market is to give that bag based on the fact that Twitch were obviously not pleased, as we see from DJ Weird, and also what we can gather internally from Twitch and their comments. And if you read between the lines of them basically not wanting to ever do that kind of exclusivity deal again, you know, you're definitely not pleased about it. You're definitely not pleased about it if you didn't re-sign that deal again with the Overwatch League in the 3rd season and you're no longer signing that deal with anybody ever. So, like, you have to be a genius to figure out that Twitch weren't super happy about that. My point is, based on that and based on kind of Overwatch being in a bit more of a floaty space and with a little less confidence, even with Overwatch 2 come out, that's still speculative, and you don't. That's a gamble, right? You'd have to be, if you want to drop a quote unquote bag for broadcasting rights, you'd have to be gambling here, and I don't know where the confidence is. I feel like almost the wider market has a bit more power now than Blizzard does or Overwatch does, because back in 2018, back in 2017, whenever they sold the deal, Overwatch was a massive deal back then. It was a massive, humongous game, global phenomenon. Blizzard could not have had a bigger success, and they held a lot of power in that regard. There's a bit of FOMO. I know that the sales team from Blizzard have definitely exercised FOMO as a way to get companies like Twitch to buy in, because you don't want to miss out. Hey, it's the Overwatch League. You don't want to miss out. And then Twitch is like, fuck, we can't miss out. And then they bought it. And I don't know that exists anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, but like you said, I don't know if it's a bad thing. A lot of room to grow, a lot of, you know, pluses to gain with being on Twitch, I guess. Like, obviously, like you said, diversifying and having as many, streams of viewership open as possible definitely helps. Even I still think Twitch in general has some intangibles that YouTube just doesn't have. Especially when it comes to discoverability and it being the most dominant platform in the space, right? Obviously, that is, I think, it's changed a little bit, but I don't know that people are going to YouTube for live streams yet, if that makes sense. Like, I think it's a growing space, but I don't think that like the stranglehold that Twitch has really let up. So knowing that like I can find any kind of esports content I want on Twitch, I think definitely would bode well for us. And yeah, like you said, I could see them taking a bag if it's too attractive. I can see them in a kind of ideal world, maybe just kind of diversify. Whatever works, I guess. I'm also kind of sad that we didn't get more of a long-term stay with Twitch, because I thought the package in general that you got with like the Overwatch League, command center, I thought that was a great deal, and I'm pretty sure that was Twitch's front. I thought that was also super cool, so I wish that was.
I love the command center, but the problem here, Joe, is like you at either 90 or 100 million over 2 years, which is either 45 or 50 million per year, at that price point, you're not signing for 3 years or 4 years in a row. I think 2 years was already like, the best middle ground of like 1 year is a little bit non-committal. 3 years is too much money and it feels like you're too committed. So 2 is the best like middle ground for like, we want to test the waters, but we don't want to beat around the bush either. So we're gonna at least put up a front like we are gonna commit at least somewhat. I just don't think, first of all, I don't think anyone's going to drop a major bag. Second of all, I don't even think we should take it. I legitimately think the best course of action is to go play the field, broadcast everywhere at once, and just widen your scope of viewership as much as humanly possible. Go from there, because I think a long-term success requires that you have a reputable esport that people want to watch and feel like it's something that's popular and cool because you want to be part of the cool kids club. You want to be doing the thing that other people think is cool.
Yeah.
And that's just how human nature is, especially if you're a school kid, in which, you know, we really got kids watching the esports a lot. And then beyond that, you know, you can grow viewership into greater sponsorship. I mean, just follow the League of Legends model.
Here's the problem. I agree. I think that's a way more likely way to make this sustainable long term. I think just like 5 years in, it is a pretty hard sell to say, yeah, we're not going to take that 90 mil over 2 years or whatever.
No one's paying that anymore.
Yeah.
Sure, but
no one's gonna pay that.
Let's say 20 mil even. And let's be honest, there are currently people moving in the space that don't care about making money.
Sure.
And that offer will come, probably. And I'm not sure if we're in a position to turn that down. Like, you're putting a lot of... I think, yes, like, theoretically speaking, if you believe in the reboot with Overwatch 2, if you want this to be like an actual Tier 1 esports and not just something that is already in the squeezing phase of like trying to get the most out of a dying product. But at the same time, like, I understand that like 5 years in, you don't want to regress in your monetization models. I will say, though, that the externalities of all of that, mainly positively, like, are so good for everything. Like, beyond like what will be directly monetizable to you in terms of the monetization directly through the league, what it will foster will be more content creators, because like everything else on the internet in terms of content creation works on numbers, right? Yep. With very few exceptions, like products like Substack or Patreon, where you can survive on like a high quality, low number of fans, but high loyalty, high paying customer each, right? That is not an esports fan, what I'm just describing, right? So the alternative is to go full mass. I think like full mass, and okay, by the way, disclaimer, this is hugely beneficial towards my work, right? Like, that's unarguably my opinion here is biased, because I stand to directly benefit from a strategy that would see a way more open, way more focusing on high amount of volume of viewers over quality of viewers, quality measured by spending per viewer, than the alternatives, right? So the idea then is, if that was the case, right, more content creators could create content, could make for a richer experience, could make for a more sticky experience, could make for a more deep experience where people actually base their identity on a part of their identity on your game. Fandoms create themselves around them. Like, actually, the stickiness that you want out of the franchise model that is currently just like, it seems to be waning in terms of the loyalty that you're expecting. You probably also want the masses of online engagement based on the uncertainty because of COVID, right? And the potential of variant after variant after variant. We're sitting here for 3 more years, theoretically speaking, even though, like, you know, fingers crossed that is not the case, right? And it becomes an endemic. But these are all factors you need to take into account for your next step, right? And I think there's also an argument to be made that the immediate profitability is there's probably less pressure on you because, like, of the acquisition of Microsoft and them going like, okay, everyone breathe. We're exchanging higher management anyway. We're not expecting like huge moves and like huge boom, boom, boom deals immediately. Maybe something like this is possible. So, comparatively speaking, hopefully we're getting a much more large-scale approach where we're streaming on all streaming platforms, where we're having F2P models, trying to increase the amount of people actively involved in, forging long-term connections. Dude, like I recently, okay, this is a weird anecdote and tangent to go on, right? But the value of that only presents itself down the line. So I have a friend who's like a huge nerd, and like if you get into his apartment, like his walls are just framed with memorabilia from his favorite video games from like 20 years ago. There he has like a Game Boy and, you know, that type of stuff. It gets harder to make these connections, right? Like what would, like, just think, what would a kid in 20 years have in his cabinet there? Sure. It would probably be in Fortnite X or something like that, right?
Yeah.
You want to be that game that is in someone's cabinet in 20 years, that has like this cultural implant, long lasting. That's something that down the line, that's a long-term business model that works for you, right? Overwatch could have been that. Keys to be that could be that again, right?
Definitely.
Like the power of that IP has been demonstrated, and to a degree, dude, like Warcraft is that for me. I still have my Warcraft 2 CD here, right? That's actually not on my windowsill anymore. But like that, I think the value of that, we're currently not attracting that necessarily because we don't have the accessibility of that younger generation that can free-to-play into this, that can, like, has a lot of friends that play it. I don't know any kid that plays this, dude. Warzone is something else. Like, Warzone, I have, because of the free-to-play model, I have a bunch of kids I teach that still, like, connect there with that. We need these approaches more. We need to sort of restart that. And if that's not or if that's not possible with a franchise model, well, we kill the franchise model, right? That's like, I think with the size of the company that Microsoft is, that's a viable strategy. They don't, as weird as that sounds, they probably don't need that to make immediate payoff, and they'd probably much more be interested in that in the long-term investment. And we see that other players equally think about this way, right? So, okay. Long story short, once again, highly biased take, but I really hope we open up and become a cultural phenomena again, and not this niche thing that tries to get $11 per head out of the guy instead of $1, you know? Yes, like it was a cool strategy that could have been attempted, that fosters like deeper experiences by being in the venue and whatnot. Tough shit, dude. We wouldn't have made it even if COVID wasn't here. That we're not there yet. We're moving into virtual spaces, adjust to it, and go for the scalability of your product instead. Highly uneducated opinion that stands to gain from it massively, because our business models and journalism are fucked, and I need numbers. Like,
I think everyone, you know, gets to see improvement and gets to see benefit from numbers. Numbers, there's a lot of intangibles there with numbers that you don't really think about. You know, just stuff I've listed, like just people's perceptions of your product improve with numbers. You know, and you can't put a dollar sign next to that.
No,
that's just an intangible thing that you have to. That actually means a lot. I mean, the power of critical mass is unbelievable. Like the more people that are drawn, like the more people you have, the more people you continue to get that are drawn to your product. Like the bigger you are, the bigger you continue to get. That's just how it is in terms of momentum. So I really hope that Microsoft, and I mean, to be fair, Microsoft aren't even going to be coming into the equation until June next year, maybe at the earliest. And by that time, the Overwatch League is going to have to already have made decisions, like the next season, the 2023 season, whatever that looks like. If it happens, if it doesn't happen, if it's, you know, got broadcasting rights, if it doesn't, and we're just doing whatever, like that season, in terms of its decisions, will need to have been decided on this year, well before Microsoft even enters the equation. So, there's a few things that play there. I think in the super long term, I'd like to believe, and agree with Yiska, that Microsoft have a bit more of a longer term vision for something like the Overwatch League. But in the short term, I don't know where things are going just yet. But I like to believe that with the reboot of the franchise, with the new game, the big marketing push, there is room for a new strategy and a different strategy than what we've had. Also, I think we've moved away from some of the personnel that really favored the more like, you know, broadcast
NFL
right,
traditional,
television. Let's do this old
my-
school. You know, the Pete Vlastelicas of this company are gone.
Yeah.
So you know the PVs
Goodbye.
are gone. You know we're not doing the old school traditional TV NFL kind of BS anymore. You have to be doing an esport. If you are doing an esport, fucking do the esport, please. Be an esport. Don't try and be something that's not an esport. Just be an esport. Fuck it. You're full of your demographics are gamers and nerds. Just be honest about it. That's not a negative thing.
Nope.
Just be honest about what you are and who you are and what you're doing, and just do that. Like. I hate this kind of pretentious behavior where we're trying to pretend to be something we're not, which is why last year's Overwatch League was the most enjoyable season I think to watch yet. I mean, that's debatable for some people, and I think most people would agree with that statement because we should stop pretending. We stopped pretending to be the NBA. We just started embracing the fact that we're a fucking video game sport. Like that's what it is. Again, not a negative thing. It just is what it is, and there's no point beating around the bush about it. And the more we align with that, the better the product will be. And so I wish more people watched last season because we had in terms of the actual tone, the content, and the production of the last season. It was probably one of the best seasons that we had. We didn't have the scale of the first couple of seasons in terms of how big everything was and the full LAN. I mean, COVID causes a lot of problems in that regard. But with the resource that we had, we made a fucking kick-ass show and something I'm proud of. And the only thing we missed was all the people. And I'm sure we had a lot of people watching that. Those people would have appreciated where the direction of the league has gone and will continue to go. At least I hope so. So, okay. Mistakes were made. Twitch regret paying that much money for a broadcasting right. And I think everyone can look back on that and say, I think even people within the Overwatch League can look back on that and say, yeah, Twitch probably paid too much. But that's credit to the Blizzard sales team for being able to somehow get Twitch on board with that, which is, again, a historical deal that we'll look back on in history. Like, do you know that once upon a time Twitch paid X and Y for some esport? Like, holy shit, like, I can't believe they did that. But I don't think broadcast rights align well with what esports is in terms of what the viewers, who the viewers are, the demographics and what they want. We're talking about kids, we're talking about young people, we're talking about people who want to watch for free. At the end of the day, esports is a free product that will likely forever until the end of time be a free viewing experience. And you want to monetize a free viewing experience, well, you got to find better ways of doing that than what Yiska was saying, where like your example, like you're not charging $11 per head here. You got to find a better way of monetizing your audience in a broader sense. So that's where I stand. I think we've all kind of dropped our own big takes on that.
Or you got to revolutionize the way esports is viewed by some additional experience that people are willing to pay for.
Metaverse. Boom, boom, boom.
No, it's probably like my only idea would be a VR experience, which doesn't necessarily mean metaverse.
A what?
VR, virtual reality, or AR if you want. Something maybe there's, but whatever essentializes the experience of watching sports with a lot of people and really accentuates that to the fullest ability. Like, it's a very nebulous term. If I had that idea, I'd be sitting on my couple of million. But yeah,
like VR chat, and you show up with your VR chat avatar at a big stadium, and you'll watch it together.
That's what I'm talking about.
A little bit cringy, but at the same time, it's like, oh my god.
That's I think about that a lot. I'm not sure if that's the experience though. I don't know, but like,
we need official Overwatch League VTubers.
Bro, I already...
That's what I want.
I told you already that it is really annoying that I need to sit in my Discord and go, 2 times check, like, have everyone sync up the actions so one in the guys in the call isn't getting the annoying buffers on YouTube and goes like, oh my god, Carpe! I'm like, huh? What? Oh my god, Carpe! And have, like, delayed... like experiences while watching with people online, right? That that shouldn't be the case. There should be some streamlined experience. And like other publishers at least try to be innovative with like GoTV in the past and that type of stuff. I think like once again, I don't know, I sound like a broken record at this point, but I really like the approach of like trying to get like a stadium atmosphere going with the voice feature that they had in Blizzard. I think there's two ways. I'm going to repeat the argument because I think it's worth making, but for those that don't know, during Overwatch League finals, I think in season 3, we had like the ability to queue yourself into like a virtual space where voices were like very silently overlaid, basically like in a stadium atmosphere, and then theoretically as a huge play happened, it would then like the aggregation or like every voice coming together should create a moment. Problem being, either there was no synchronization between like whatever the person saw on the screen and like when they react, and therefore like it was just a mush of white noise of people just talking over each other, and the peaks in their reaction wasn't actually synchronized, or people don't watch Overwatch with that much intent and actually like big moments probably passed them by as we were watching.
No, they do. They do. As somebody who has seen Overwatch live, people are paying attention. People are actively listening, almost to a fault. I don't know how many times I would hear people be like, you know what the San Francisco Shock need to do? They need to go Bastion. I think Bastion's the play.
Yeah.
They're not playing enough Bastion, guys.
Yeah. I mean,
also, can you keep your fucking hands out of my room, please? Thank you.
So, Joe, you're talking about viewing Overwatch in a live setting, like a stadium or something, right? That's what you're talking about. Yeah, I think in that setting, you're far more likely to be
sure. Yes, it's inherently biased,
rather than like if you're online, you get distracted. You got Twitter open on one screen, you got like some Twitch clip in the other screen. You know what I mean? Like you're probably far more distracted at home, which is why you're leading to more of like a less focused experience. I almost wonder, like where the evolution of viewing goes, because I think that prior to COVID, there was a big push for live viewing, and we were going to make some serious strides. When I say we, I mean the entire esports industry. Weekly live studio audiences for LCS. Every single Overwatch League game was live, and we would have, and again, we being all of esports, have big stadium matches for important games and playoffs, stuff like that. And we started to fill out massive venues and all that kind of stuff. And we were heading into a very live kind of arena as far as viewing experience goes. Like that was a priority. Everything had to go live eventually. Whereas now in a post-COVID world, I feel like that's not a certainty anymore. I think I'd like to go back to that, because I think the live viewing experience of an esport is the premier way to view it still. But how do we get to a point where, depending on where COVID goes, if there's still a lot of online stuff, how do we move that into a place where that can be a little bit more engaging? And that's where I feel like Yiska had a lot to say on that, and it is a very interesting thing to think about.
You know what I just want? I just want to be able to do this during viewing Overwatch League. Just kiss the homie. Wait, is it? You guys didn't see it.
Joe's down here.
Yeah, no, you see the preview. That's why you just didn't see it. I'll do it again for you guys. Hello. Right.
No, that's creepy. That was creepy.
It really is, right? Okay.
I think he spat on me.
No.
Pretty much.
For our audio listeners, his green screen reaches into for whatever reason, my screen region, and he's invading my privacy and popping my personal bubble.
You never know.
I'm high on Molly. I might just kiss you. You better watch out.
Right. Yeah.
All right.
He immediately shut down. He's like, "Oh boy."
Oh boy.
So I think that's a very that was an interesting discussion, a good topic. Probably the final major topic of this week's show, though. Just a couple of footnotes for other things that have kind of happened, but we're not going to fully get into. Activision Blizzard have announced. Have they announced? They've announced they're working on a survival game currently, which to me is like, is it Blizzard Rust? Like that's what it sounds like.
I heard it's Ben.
the Forest.
No, I think it's based on Overwatch contenders.
Jesus fucking Christ. And then so basically be in Korea is the only way you can win.
Yeah,
then.
literally.
So that's one footnote. The other footnote is Mike Ybarra, the current president of Blizzard, said that there will be some announcements coming in the next week about Blizzard products, including Warcraft and Overwatch and maybe Diablo. But because there's nothing really to talk about them, we can spend time speculating, but I feel like it's kind of pointless. Because at that point it could literally be anything. It could be completely nothing. It could be really cool. It's almost not worth speculating on, so we're gonna pass that by. We'll give it a bit of a nod, acknowledge that it exists, but we'll wait until next week. And hey, if that happens before next week's episode, that'll be great content for next week as well. So the final thing we're gonna end on today is a little bit of Joe's favorite game show. Get off the fence. We'll take a few questions. We've already passed the 2-hour mark for this episode, so we'll try and finish this one around the 2:30-ish kind of mark. So we'll only do
we'll do a couple quick ones.
We'll do a small number of questions here and then leave the rest for next week.
For sure. So yes, get off the fence. I don't know why my brain was like, get off the track. I'm like, I don't know what that is, Chief.
Off the beaten track.
Yeah, off the beaten track. If you want to ask us a question for this segment, be sure to head over to patreon.com/tacticalcrouch. If you are a patron of any level, you can throw a question to us in Discord. I'll add it to my magical list of many questions, whom Picasso dominates. And whatever it is, we'll eventually get to it. Obviously, we try to vary up the list and try to answer as many different questions as possible. So with that in mind, we're gonna head over to, we'll start with AVRL for this one. I think you'll be interested with this. We'll start with a question from RD11490 from our Discord. They ask, would a pick ban system, I guess ban only system, have saved Overwatch esports or ruined it? So they're asking if a pick or ban system would have saved Overwatch esports. Do you have any hot takes on that? Does your butt hurt sitting on the fence?
Funny enough, we already did have a ban system. We literally had hero pools. That's by definition a ban system. Now the only difference,
I would guess that they're, without hijacking the question, I would guess that they're probably asking like individual teams banning specifically against another team.
Getting to that point of the discussion is like, well, yeah, I think it would have been better handled by the teams rather than by the league. Now, there's some pros and cons. The pros of the league handling it is that it's a little bit more, it's a little bit easier to digest for viewers, especially more casual viewers. Like, it's easy, like, okay, well, for this set period of time, okay, in season 3, this is ridiculous. This is like week by week it changed, and that's not fun for anyone. But you could still argue that despite it changing week by week, that's still more digestible than it changing game by game or map by map. From a competitive integrity standpoint, it is far better to allow the teams to be the ones that dictate bans if we're going to do bans at all. I am of the opinion that we don't want to do bans at all. We shouldn't need bans. In an ideal world where the meta is fluid enough, which we actually got at May Melee. May Melee last year was the most fluid meta and the most open meta we've ever had in Overwatch, where no hero, not a single hero for like, I think the first time in the league's history, was above 50% playtime. Tracer was at like 49, 48% playtime or something like that, but it was not at 50. And no hero was even close to that. So that's about as balanced and as diverse of a meta you could possibly hope for. May Melee of 2021 here that I'm talking about. And there was a real discussion that took place internally of whether we wanted to actually have hero pools for that year or not. Now, obviously, depending on that decision, if you were going to have hero pools, you were going to maintain it for both the June Joust and then also, is it Summer Showdown? Or Countdown Cup was the other one. Yeah, you'd have a Countdown Cup and Summer Showdown. But if you didn't want the hero pools, you'd bin it for the entire season. So it was either take all of it and like keep the same status quo or remove all hero pools. And obviously, based on history, we know they kept it because it was I think the discussion took place reasonably close to, when June Joust might be starting, because it wasn't that big of a gap between the tournament cycles. So there wasn't a lot of time to just sit on it and think. It needed to be a pretty swift decision. And they went with keeping it because it was likely easier to just stick with the status quo than shake things up too much. It was also, by the way, a big risk to shake things up because, maybe in May Melee, the meta is good, but then you get to June Joust and suddenly teams are a bit more rigid. They're like, no, we're going to stick to this instead. And by the end of the year, teams basically just play. We discovered that Tracer Sombra was the ideal meta. I would argue that we still had a diverse meta simply because the NA teams wanted to play some Rhine. But if it wasn't for that, then we would have had a pretty homogenous kind of meta. But back to the question at point. In an ideal world, we don't need bans at all. But if we are going to have bans, I would still prefer the teams to be doing that rather than the league.
Fair play. Yiska, any looks there? Picks bans?
I think the problem is what kind of pick and bans we'd see, right? Theoretically, I have nothing against like adding agency towards the team's own destiny. So the problem is like the way it probably generally is thought of, it would happen shortly before the game, and that adds so much volatility to how Overwatch is played that I'm not a big fan of it. Now, I am also an admirer of more refined play, of more like rehearsed play, so that would be completely gone, right? Like you cannot physically practice and rehearse the amount of compositions that you would need to without knowing which heroes the opponent would ban, right? Another downside is do I actually not want to see Fearless on Winston? Is that something I like? Because that would have been a must ban, right? Like even in the time when it was viable.
Yeah.
Do I enjoy the experience of watching a team not play the best, what they're best at, right?
Yeah.
Which other team is it like that? Do I?
If you were to ban like Wrecking
ban
Ball.
Lip Sombra 100%.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, something like that.
Permaban.
Yeah, that's permaban. I mean, you would have argued like even for like people that don't care about too much about the top end competitiveness, we would have never seen the Chengdu of season 3 that we saw, or season 2, right? For that matter, more so season 2. Like if you ban ball, arming never becomes a meme, right? So
yeah,
it shuts down some cool storylines in that, especially in teams that have unique takes on the meta. I think like against Atlanta, you just ban Rhine, right? And then maybe they would play Orisa, to be fair. I'm not sure Keita is too bothered by that. I think we'd see way less Diva, potentially, depending on what kind of a ban system you had. Let's say you allow one ban for each role, whatever. Yeah, I think like the problem is it's such a blanket statement to say like let's allow teams to ban. I like the idea. I think what most people mean when they say that is like a ban of 3 to 6 heroes shortly before the game starts, and then everyone gets on the server and plays. And I'm not a big fan of that, though I could see systems, let's say you make the bans the week beforehand. So like after each match day, you look at which matchups are coming up next week, and then you allow the teams to ban for regular season matches. And then for the playoff matches, where like you're playing several matches on a day that aren't predictable, you just don't have them ban, and everyone plays their best game. Something like that could work. I'd like that more than, okay, let's not know what kind of Overwatch we're going to play on any given day, right? So, but yeah, I think that question almost certainly has to be answered with the idea of what kind of bans you're thinking about, as opposed to hero pools.
Agreed.
I will just add on to that, say like the pros of banning would have been, and this is a very circumstantial perspective, is we could have prevented the GOAT situation from happening if we did have bans.
Yeah.
So, during GOAT's era, I would have loved to have a ban system where like, okay, sure, I don't know what the game is going to be every single game, but fuck it, that's better than watching GOATs, which is a little revisionist because at that time, had we done the bans hypothetically, we wouldn't have known the evil that is GOATs.
Yeah.
So you can't like praise the tool that gets you away from the evil without even knowing what it was in the first place. Do you know what I mean?
True.
So you can't be too revisionist about it. But yeah, if I'm allowed to be at least slightly revisionist about it, then yeah, we would have prevented GOATs had we had bans. But I don't think Overwatch as a game is a game that is suited for bans. I like to imagine that whatever you do in your esport should be replicatable in your competitive queue. And I don't think you could do bans at all in your competitive queue.
Yeah.
And if you can't do it there, it feels difficult to justify in your competitive game because ideally, the competitive game you play at home in your own game client in the ranked is identical to the game that you actually see in the esport. That's basically what it is for every successful esport, right? You're playing the exact same game. And if you're not, and I don't mean like you're obviously not sitting in ranked in a best of 3 or anything like that. I just mean like in a moment to moment kind of fashion. Which is why in League of Legends you play ranked, there are picks and bans, in the exact same fashion as you would get in a professional match, because that's what that competitive game is now is. And if you were to introduce like bans properly into Overwatch, like this is now going to be a competitive feature, you're going to have to rethink your entire hero design philosophy to match that, because you're going to now need. Here's the problem: is like you have so many unique heroes in Overwatch. If you ban away Mercy, there's no other hero like Mercy in the whole game.
Yeah.
So you're going to need to have a little bit more loose design territory when it comes to repeating things that exist in the game. Like, you know, we're gonna make another hero that's maybe slightly similar-ish to Lucio. That's not Lucio, because if you have bans in this game, I mean, you get rid of something like Lucio, boom, you literally do not have another hero like that in the entire game. It's gone. Whereas you have a game like League of Legends, 140 fucking champions, you ban 10 of them total for a game, 130 of them are still available. Even if you ban something that is pretty important in a meta, there's a secondary champion available that maybe roughly fills the same role and can do similar things, but you haven't lost out big time. So the example this is to address something that Yiska said is like, do you really want to see a world where you just permaban Lip Sombra and Fearless as Winston? Well, in a game like League of Legends, where that does happen, well, the next best hero, the next best champion is still pretty good. You're getting like a Winston-ish clone or a Sombra-ish clone that is not exactly that hero, but is close enough that you're still kind of getting that experience. So you're not losing out too much. Is the way I'll describe it.
Well said. Well said. I tend to agree. Here's another fun one as we kind of wrap up. A little quick one to kind of chew on. We'll go to Yiska with this from our pal Fish Ghost from Discord. They ask, what does the league look like if Huck didn't go with Crusty in season 1? Does any other GM pick him up? Does he get a shot later? Does he prove himself if he comes in as an assistant coach? Get off the fence. Does Crusty make a name if not for the season 1 miracle run?
Ooh. Yes. Eventually, yes.
Okay.
I'm not sure if that happens in season 1.
Okay.
But I
so
think
in your mind, maybe he doesn't enter season 1, but maybe somehow works his way in season 2.
I mean, if you look at which other coaches were eventually picked up, like teams. Wait, it was Foxes, right? I'm remembering correctly. Yes. Coaches from teams of the level of Foxes were definitely recruited into the Overwatch League eventually. So I think the fact that they got Crusty probably speaks to their scouting ability, and also probably that like other teams passed on Crusty, but eventually, like, not least, if Crusty gets to coach Foxes for another year, they're probably also doing very well in Contenders. And they probably that he just probably makes a name for himself there and then gets in. I don't think he gets to like immediately win the Overwatch League in season 2 then. That's probably not the case.
No.
Right? But I also don't know too much about the way he was recruited. It's theoretically possible that, like, Boston Uprising was just very early in the process of signing. Crusty just wanted for sure to be signed somewhere, and then he just signed with Boston, and then everyone else signed their coach. And let's also not be like kid ourselves. There was a lot of churn and like turnover in season 1 in the coaching staff, right? Like, there are not that many coaches around from that were there in season 1, right? Like, I'm thinking even the head coaches, like, you know, like Kirby was there, like, okay, so I said a lot, but not a lot. I don't know why I'm thinking of Hayes, even though it's the same team. Like, who else was? What's later ended up on Hangzhou, Guangzhou. Sorry, is now an agent. No, British guy, I think.
Are you talking about like
Cuddles?
Cuddles, yes.
Cuddles. I think people don't even remember, but I think Cuddles was head coach of Valiant. I think in the very beginning.
Like a week.
Yeah, I mean, there's always like slots there, right? That were and let's be honest, like Moon wasn't actually like the fact that Moon was recruited probably speaks towards the theory that maybe Crusty could have even come in season 1 at a later point, because Moon was not necessarily more decorated or highly esteemed coach than Crusty was at that time, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think, like, long story short, I think he eventually just makes it to greatness again, probably either in season 1 or season 2. But yes, it would have slowed down probably the process, because I assume that he was paid less. Was like less contested than other coaches at the time, hence why he ended up on the Boston Uprising. But I could be wrong, and maybe Huck was just like very early to him.
It's really hard to say. Like, I don't know what Crusty's stocks were like going into season 1, and how many teams were interested. I can fully agree though that he would have eventually made it, because to make it into the league, especially nowadays, you need. Well, I mean, from season 2 to season 4, you need some modicum of success in tier 2, and that's usually enough. You don't even have to be the best coach on the best team. Plenty of coaches, like, you know, especially based on what Yiska said, like around Foxes eventually made it in. There's a big shuffle that happened after season 1 where every single team kind of realized, like, damn, dude, we got a lot of useless coaches in this league. What's going on here? I think a lot of teams misfired on their coaching stuff. Misfired being like, they pulled the trigger on the wrong people to start with, and they had to eventually rehire so many different people. And we've finally gone to a place now where, in the last 2 years of the Overwatch League, I think it's pretty solid in terms of every single team. Every single team has pretty good coaching staff, or has had pretty good coaching staff. That's debatable for some teams. You could probably say if you hate a specific team that failed, you could say that Boston in their bad year had bad stuff. You could say that Seoul last year, blah 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 blah. But the point is, even then, that compared to season 1 is like such a huge improvement. Even if you think so and so team weren't good in the last 3 years. So Crusty would have made it as long as he stuck to his guns and didn't give up and just didn't retire. He would have eventually made it, and I feel so. Yeah, Yiska is right that he wouldn't have won season 2. Maybe that entire shock thing between season 2 and season 3, that mini dynasty, wouldn't have happened. But Crusty would have been there. It's hard to say if he would have been as dominant, because his pathway could have been different. He could have come in and been an assistant coach first, would have had to make his way up slowly to get to the head coach. Really difficult to say. You know, how much control is this guy allowed? How much do teams trust him? That is quite difficult, because you don't have the situation where, you know, he gets to capture lightning in a bottle for stage 3 of Boston, and then transfer that onto Shock for a back-to-back win. You know, that very much defined his career, and his career trajectory would have been very different if he did not get that opportunity with Boston.
All right. Hopefully that answers your guys' questions. If you would like your question answered, if that kind of spurred a burning seed in your little comment brain, let us know by coming over to patreon.com/tacticalcrouch. dropping a little. Again, it can be any level of patronage. Jumping over to Discord, drop a line. We will get to it eventually. I promise.
Yeah, bring your small comment brains, as Joe said.
Bring them over. We love them.
Tiny comment brains.
Sometimes they're big comment brains. I have lots of questions in here that are fucking huge brain that we just have to carve out the time to actually get to.
As we're finishing up for the episode and getting to the outro here, do any of your undisclosed commentary brain sizes have anything else to comment on for things we talked about today or things you're looking forward to for next week? I'm looking forward to the next Attack on Titan, but we don't have to go back there. We can talk about Overwatch if you want.
I'm kind of hoping like whatever this news is, we get a little bit of it. I don't know.
I think we're getting bombs. By the time we're recording, we probably have bombs.
You think we're getting?
I think so. I think so. Theoretically speaking, right?
I mean, sure, theoretically, but
I hope they release this news before our recording then. Because if it's after, I'll be sad.
By the way, okay, so just for this not to be clipped out of context, I don't know much more than you guys do. It's just like a pattern in how they release information that coincides. The stars align onto next time we record, and I think there's a certain likelihood that we'll get it then. And there's also incentive for them to have that information out there. So I wouldn't know why it would be any later unless it virtually wasn't done yet. I think the way Blizzard has communicated their information, something is going to pop up. Now, whether those bombs are Overwatch related, I don't know. That it could be any other Blizzard product. But we'll see.
Okay. I mean, I'm looking forward to it. I really... He did specifically say Overwatch. That was named as part of whatever announcement that they had.
WoW. Coming up soon. So
I said Warcraft and say WoW, but we can just assume it will be WoW. But in any case,
unless they're announcing Warcraft 4, I don't know what else it could be. I guess.
Exciting news. Really excited. Are we getting a BlizzCon line, or has that been canned?
It's canned.
I think that was canned, and they tried. They're talking about like reimagining it.
So the reason why I asked is because if we're not getting a BlizzCon line, I imagine there probably would have been some announcements they would have been planning for a BlizzCon line had it been coming this year.
Yes.
But if it's not here, then I mean we're gonna get some announcement somewhere. I mean, we just got told about a new survival game, and they would have saved that for BlizzCon line had we had one, right? So. And Eric is saying last year's BlizzCon line was February 9th. So, I mean, we're getting close to around that date. So, yeah, it feels like we're on the precipice of getting some drops. And hopefully there are some big ones, according to Yiska. That sounds pretty cool if it does come true.
So let's just say that the pattern is that every first Tuesday of the quarter, like it's 3 months ago, we got the last... pretty bad message, if you guys recall. That's likely to happen next Tuesday. So that's my reading of this. This is, I think, like based on how they communicated, I think we'll probably find something out. Though to be fair, there's nothing really holding them to that pattern, and they have probably a good argument given the acquisition or impending acquisition that this might be delayed. But we'll see.
Right. Well, I mean, we'll find out next week. Worst comes to worst, I'll say the magic words again. We're going to have nothing to talk about next week. So we'll have a 30-minute episode talking about only anime, and that will be it for next week. But for now, I'm summoning that reality. But for now, 211 done and dusted. Thank you for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed. Actually had some reasonable Overwatch stuff to talk about this week, and with any luck, we'll have more than reasonable Overwatch stuff to talk about next week for 212. But we'll see you then next week. Peace out. Thank you very much.